The universe is in peril. We've got about 24 hours until it completely is destroyed. The only way you can help me save it is by watching Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast. I'll see you there.
Hello, it's time for Type 40 Live, your live stream Doctor Who magazine show, the live stream Doctor Who magazine show materializing here on YouTube, Rumble and Facebook, and beginning a landmark week again in time and space. Here, though, we're set to give you the willies, to rattle your bones, to put the wind right up you, and to shiver your timbers, whichever platform, time stream or time zone you're joining us from. Welcome. Yes, this is Type 40 Live, where we hit your screen in real time, and as always, in front of a live chat full of friends, fans, and companions just like you. Thanks for watching and thanks for listening. I am Dan Hadley, Birmingham's king of the geeks. And here is where we set off on a brand new adventure into the unknown, everybody, for Halloween night here at Type 40 Live. In this 60th anniversary year too, we're just a few weeks away, aren't we, from that, all those specials, those 3 specials, a trilogy of maybe terror or maybe delight. We have to wait and see, won't we? I've got a positive coven, a bubbling coven full of cohorts waiting to come on and to talk about, this particular slice of Doctor Who we're going to get into today with a deep dive review a little bit later on. And we're streaming this, as always, across those platforms, over to YouTube, the world's largest streaming platform, and to our friends there in the Type 40 Facebook group. Remember, if you are there, please hit the little blue link, and then Facebook will tell StreamYard exactly who you are, whether you're in fancy dress or not, and then StreamYard will tell us trick or treat. We'll all get on the same page and around the cauldron to freak and spook one another out here on Type 40 Live this time. Okay. Now, some of us take Halloween a little bit more seriously than others, don't they? And this time, I'm happy to say on the panel, we're no different. We've got, so I put the lights are down a little bit lower. We've got the spooky TARDIS. I've had a bit of a dust around, so it's not dirty, but it's just very moody and a little bit gothic to welcome them all in. First of all, where is she? Yes, she's here. I have looking, I think, more subtly spooky than outright terrifying. We've got Charlotte Shields.
I thought it'd be good, and I'd put my black jumper on at least.
Yeah, is it a spider webs motif you're going for there?
Well, no, it's got like sparkly dragonflies, so there's a little bit of spooky, you could argue, like you said.
A little of the mystical.
Yeah, a little bit magical. Let's go that way.
That'll do. I'll take that. So, how's your week been so far? Good.
Good. Yeah, it's just I've got an exciting day on Thursday. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
An exciting day. Well, we'll find out more about that on Thursday, I suppose. Right. I understand that we have, yes, it's not quite the witching hour, but we are being besieged by demons, Charlotte. Are you ready?
Oh, I think I am.
Yeah, you might want to brace yourself a little bit, depending on how easily frightened you are. because you can see Sarah is flapping her wings and polishing her horns to join us. And I don't know what that is it's in her hand, but I think it's probably a good 20% proof. Hi, Sarah.
Yeah, I always get the best intros. Thank you. Yes, I got my buck horns, I got my buck wings, and yeah. And
Is your glass is your glass red, or is what you're drinking red? It's not rabbit's blood or something.
No, it's not rabbit's blood. No, it's a lovely posh wine glass.
I was going to say you've not been hanging around a master, have you, Sarah?
Yes. Well, we'll find out, won't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've not picked this very good, have I? Because now every time you ask me something, I'm going to have to go. Just
That's it. Think yourself into the role. Think yourself. You want to give us the full pose now before you're too drunk to do it later on?
Hang on, let me put my glass down.
You're gonna have to for full screen.
Oh no, don't make me go full screen.
Absolutely terrifying.
I hope nobody's doing that.
Well, we can do it later. We can sort that out, Charlotte. It'll be absolutely fine. Okay, yes, and we're not done yet. We've got to complete the panel. Well, I think it's complete. Depends on whether the pentagram's working. Somebody else may be summoned later. But for now, I'm bringing on our Doctor on call. This is the first edition of Type 40 Live. We've got him on. And yeah, you may have heard him as the first Doctor on Big Finish's range of audio dramas there in the box sets, recreating the fabulous original incarnation of the Time Lord. But this time he's talking about something completely different from several lifetimes, or a couple of lifetimes later in the Doctor's life. And he's dressed for the part too, I think. We're welcome to the chamber, Stephen Noonan.
Good evening. I'm feeling slightly overdressed now. Yeah. I mean, this is just something I threw on, but
of course it is.
But I'm glad Sarah's got her. I can't see the wings. Can we see the wings?
You can't,
Sarah.
Hang on.
Can we see the bottom wings?
Do a twirl.
I can't do it. Well,
have you not got the bot leotard on as well?
I've got no. Funnily enough, Stephen, I don't have that in my wardrobe.
I have to explain that I have Sarah Graham to thank for this jacket, because she sent me a screenshot. She was going shopping for her boys in Next, of all places. You wouldn't think you'd get a John Pertwee jacket in Next, would you? And she sent me a photograph. And so while I was visiting my mother in Liverpool, I went and looked in Next, and there, sure enough, were these rather marvellous jackets. So I've got this one, and there's a blue one as well. So
very dashing. Let's give people a closer look. Oh yes, very good.
There you go. There you go. And I got the wing collar as well.
Yes.
And I say,
lit some candles. Put that, and this bottle. This is not blood. You'll be pleased to hear.
Yeah. I did wonder.
This is actually a nice bottle of wine, and I bought, because I couldn't find the bottle opener, so I bought a new bottle opener, and the bottle opener snapped. Can you believe it? The bottle opener was weaker than the cork. So we went round to a neighbour, and they tried to get it out and smash the top of the bottle. So there may be glass in this. So if I start coughing up blood, which will be appropriate enough, you'll know why.
Yeah.
We'll just think you've gone. Anyway. We'll just think as an actor you've gone method on us.
Yeah. Well, exactly. You could try acting, dear boy, as somebody once said, but why do that when you can have the real thing?
I couldn't agree more. What do you think of the secondary TARDIS console room here, then, Stephen? I thought this was perfect for us to sit down with the low lighting and freak one another out.
Well, I think it was. Is that Barry Newbury that designed that?
I believe so.
And and it was meant to be sort of Jules Verne and to suit the Bohemian Fourth Doctor, as Hinchcliffian times became more and more gothic. I have to say, at the time when I first saw it in Mask of Mandragora, I was appalled that because the TARDIS interior, the TARDIS control room, was unchallengeable, I suppose, rather as Delia's arrangement seemed to be. It's one of those things that you shouldn't change. And I sort of got used to it as a season. It's funny, you don't see it a lot. It's in Mask of Mandragora, it's in Hand of Fear. I think the last time you see it, you see it in Deadly Assassin. You don't see it in Facebook. Last time you see it is Robots of Death. Very last time you see it. It's not in Talons of Weng Chiang. And I have to say, as you may be aware, those who've been watching our previous collaborations may be aware that I'm not the hugest fan of the Graham Williams era. However, one of the things that I was very pleased about when Invisible Enemy, docked was the return of the white control room, And so, but no, it looks great in a still photograph. But you can see the wheels on that because it's on casters. It's a desk, It's a desk on casters,
Yeah.
But there you are. You can't change the history of Doctor Who, not one line. And there's the shaving mirror. It warped, didn't it, between seasons 14 and 15?
That's the legend. I'm never sure how much
whether in fact it conveniently became unusable or not, But
it could be. It could be, Stephen. Graham Williams. It could be, Stephen, that they just got your letters. If you'd been writing them blanket letters for months.
It never came to that quite. I was writing for repeats. Do you remember it though, Dan? When it went out, do you remember that control room?
No, I don't. I got no recollection of that whatsoever.
No. What are you ladies who've arrived sort of in the 21st century? Damn you for being so young. What are your thoughts about that control room? Do you like it?
Who wants to go first? Yeah, I loved it.
Sorry.
God, I really loved it. Yeah, I loved the wood paneling and the but obviously I wasn't as attached to the white console room that everybody else. I mean, I love the coral. I kind of love them. There's not really one that I don't like apart from
something we're not going to mention.
Yes.
Right, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I just love how different it is because for me, whenever I look at classic TARDISes, they all have that really like sci-fi techie look. Like that's how I almost class the TARDIS when it comes to classic Who. So to have something which is a lot more natural looking, have something which
so on sci-fi. Yeah,
to have that sort of more, like you said, gothic, and that sort of, almost it feels proper like a time machine a little bit more to me.
Yeah, it's very much more like like H.G. Wells, Jules Verne kind of.
Exactly. That was definitely the thinking, and of course it fits, doesn't it? With the origins of Verity Lambert was always talking about how the Doctor was in her mind always the time traveler from H.G. Wells' time machine, and he belongs in the 1890s, so it fits with that. But we'd got so used to the white, it just seems so strange for them to change it at the time. But of course, there've been so many different TARDIS control rooms since. Yeah. Do you want to have a little conversation about favourite TARDIS control rooms subsequent to this
I think we could go down a real rabbit hole with that because
there's so many. It's all rabbit holes, isn't it? Basically,
but we're going to get a brand new one soon. They're trying to keep it under wraps, but they can't keep us guessing. They can't keep it under wraps forever. Well, we have sort of. I think we have sort of seen it. There was pictures that were leaked out. They quickly had them removed, scrubbed from the internet. But I believe that in 3 weeks' time, when we get DW60 and those 3 brand new specials with David Tennant and Catherine Tate, I think we have to see the inside of the old girl again at some point during those 3 specials, whether it be the beginning or the end. Heaven only knows. More of that, of course, on future editions of Type 40 Live. But on this one, it's the season of the witch, everybody. And I think Halloween is a bigger deal for some more than others, depending on your geography and maybe which generation you are. It was never a big thing when I was a kid. But I've sort of tried to relish it lately, and I think it's a nice opportunity for us, certainly, to revel in a chunk of prime Doctor Who when it transfixed children all over the country, and lots of adults too. And just as British TV was moving into colour. So that's our review of The Daemons that's coming up later on. But I wanted to chat to you guys, first of all, really, about the nature of fear and the kind of special domestic brand of fear that we can only get from Doctor Who. Because when it comes to Halloween, there's never been specifically a Doctor Who episode that's traded on Halloween literally, but there's been lots that's chilled us over the years, hasn't it? And sent us scurrying behind the sofa, and parents sometimes writing letters. You scared my little Johnny or my little Mary. You scared her to death. That's part of the history of Doctor Who too, isn't it?
Who's going first on that one? Yeah,
you can.
Absolutely. No, well, okay. Well, I've got actually interesting. Talking about Doctor Who Halloween, my first vivid memories of Halloween are related to Doctor Who.
Really?
Because there were several stories in the Hinchcliffe era. Of course, in the Pertwee years, my little boyhood, as it were, the Doctor Who wasn't on in the autumn, so it started in January. So the beginning of 1970s autumn Doctor Who is season 13. So the first, unfortunately, I was trying to find the VHSs, but I could only find 2 here. But we'll come to that. The first, have a guess. What was the first Doctor Who story of the 70s? The first Hinchcliffe story shown at Halloween. Wonderfully appropriate gothic horror story from season 13.
From season 13.
13, yeah. So which starts with Terror of the Dying and ends with Seeds of Doom. So
it wouldn't have been the Mask of Mandragora, would it?
No, that's season 14. Think of one of the most gothic 70s Doctor Who stories of all.
Oh, The Brain of Morbius.
No, that's January. Okay. Try again.
Okay.
One more time. One more go.
Pyramid.
Yes. Queen Charlotte Fry's Pyramids of Mars is the Halloween story from 1975, and I totally associate the Halloween of 1975 with that story. And how appropriate it was. I don't know if I can't remember. And I think it's sort of episode 1, episode 2. One of those was on the right weekend. The next year we've got season 14. What was the Halloween story? You can work it out because it's usually the third story of the season. Because you get a September story, you get an October story. Yeah, sorry, you get September, October. Yeah, end of October.
Well, that would have been The Face of Evil then.
No, that's January 1977. This is 76.
No, I'm terrible. I told you the 70s. I don't know what comes after what.
A very gothic figure in a subterranean adytum, now in a deeply emaciated state.
Deadly Assassin.
Yes, the Deadly Assassin. And the one from season 15 we discussed a few weeks ago was Image of the Fendel.
Image of the Fendel.
Yeah.
I thought that was Halloween.
So Halloween in the Hinchcliffe, and then Stones of Blood is the one the next year. So there was quite nicely appropriate each of those stories in terms of tying into the Halloween theme.
Lots of my memories of 70s Doctor Who, though, Stephen. Obviously, I was very, very young, and for me, the people who were making the show at the time, since having read up on it, they were very dialed in to horror and thriller, and it was very clear what they were trying to do. There was lots of homages and kind of loose rewrites and some plain rip-offs of things that have been successful in literature and at the movies. There was lots of those drizzled throughout that time. And so, to be honest, whether it was Halloween or not, most of the time as a boy, this show scared the living hell out of me. Yeah. And I think that when you look actually throughout the full 26 years of the classic show, there were things that unnerved each set of children that had recently come to it in one way or another. I think the nature of the things that they used, storytelling tropes or costume to do that, may have changed over those 26 years, but it definitely still continued. What are your thoughts on this, Charlotte? Because you're somebody who's discovered the classic show very much in piecemeal form. So when you sample stories from each decade, do you notice a drastic difference in the language of fear, or do they sort of pull the same stunts on us as viewers time after time, and I'm just oblivious?
I think with classic and New Who, there's one like through line, which is Doctor Who gets something which is almost ordinary and something everyday and twists it and morphs it into something which is fantastical, something that can get you scared. I think classic did that with a lot more what you said when it was clear homage, because it had more contemporary stuff like Hammer, like obviously gothic greats like Frankenstein and Dracula. So it would use that, but then it would always try and touch back to something. I think that's what Doctor Who writers have always done brilliantly. And I think with New Who, the bigger one I can remember is as a kid, I'm still a bit freaked out by them now, but as a kid, I was really scared of old-fashioned ventriloquist dummies.
Yeah.
When it's like the proper with the mouths going up and down.
The God complex.
Yes.
And then,
because
I watched the Goosebumps, where it was one that came to life, and the voice and everything about that Goosebumps completely got to me. So
have you ever seen a film called Magic with Anthony Hopkins?
No.
I keep telling me about
recommended. Recommended. Yeah, you'd either love it or whatever your relationship is with ventriloquist dummies. I presume you quite enjoy being scared by them, do you, Charlotte? Or
well, it's one of those things that is just the creepy factor that gets to me.
Yeah.
So in the God complex, I love that episode. I still adore it. But that scene when he sits there and he's surrounded by them, it was like, oh, thank you, Moffat. That is
very good at that
thing.
I had the same with Night Terrors.
Is that Toby Whithouse who wrote that as well, isn't it? Yes, it says Moffat Whithouse, isn't it? Yeah, sorry, go on. Night Terrors. Yeah, that's a good one.
With the doll, the peg dolls and everything.
Yes, very effective.
There's something about when you do something to the face, when you either stop people from being able to see or speak in particular and communicate. And you can do that, can't you, in subtle ways? And I think just simply by putting your hands over your eyes, which I suppose is the motif of the Weeping Angels, isn't it? Isn't it, Sarah?
Yeah.
It just looks horrific in any way.
No, I think it's just more that kind of psychological fear as well. And they played up on that, especially in the second Angels episode with Amy. But yeah, like what you were saying, Charlotte, about faces and masks. Stephen Moffat, when he did The Girl in the Fireplace with the clockwork droid, because he said nobody had ever put something under the bed. You think in all these years of Doctor Who, why hasn't there been something under the bed? And that was really a creepy idea to me.
So he thought he'd do it a lot.
He thought he'd make up for it.
Funny enough, I was thinking about. Listen, he put a child under the bed in that, didn't he? And,
eventually it's Clara, isn't it, under the bed? It's always Clara, eventually, isn't it?
No, yes, more often than not. More often than not, it is. Yeah. Obviously, I mean, it's good. I suppose it's good to hear that when you speak to people from the next generation of Doctor Who fans who found it so much later, that it still had the power to draw them in and make them just scared enough. But one can't help but wonder if some of the stories weren't too esoteric, or the suggestion was so subtle that it would have been completely lost on people. That's something that I have wondered about a lot over the last 10 to 12 years, that could have diminished Doctor Who's raw power, that raw power to simply to make people jump. I think there's nothing wrong with jump scares, as cheap as they are. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know what I mean?
Well, I was going to say, Charlotte. I've never had a conversation with Charlotte before, but how old were you when you first encountered Doctor Who, and were you young enough to be scared by it as a child?
Because I worked this out, I think I must have been about 11. I'd just at that sort of middle age, not a teenager, not a little child.
With Rose,
yes,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But I don't remember even being that freaked out by Dan had the picture then of the empty child.
Right.
I think for me, I'm not like visible stuff, because I grew up reading though Stephen King, and so I did like horror. But I think for me, it's always been the more suggestion. And I think that's actually what you said, Dan. That's what I loved going back to classic, because I felt like at times classic was a lot better at doing that suggestive fear. The sort of not being in your face with what the fear was. You just had to think a bit and you go, no, actually, that's really spooky, what it's actually getting at.
So what were the most effective classic stories? Which ones sort of turned you on to classic, having got into Revive? What were the ones that you thought, oh, this is good, or possibly better than what the Revive series is doing?
I'm trying to think. I loved my Troughton, so it would have been a Troughton, I think.
Okay, interesting.
Probably, do you know what? Probably Enemy of the World, because of just that portrayal he did.
Playing the two parts.
Yeah, just how it was. He was so different and still, but then he would have those moments. I forgot the character's name now.
Salamander.
Salamander. Just being creepy. I think that's what it was.
So was it partly a sort of a tour de force as an actor thing of being admiring Troughton's ability to be the Doctor, but also to be somebody completely different?
Yes, and then, like I said, having that vibe of, God, I wouldn't want to meet him in a dark alley.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's a different kind of frightening for us, though, isn't it? Because there's a familiar face who's not behaving in a familiar way, and that in itself, it throws you off balance. That's a different kind of fear entirely. So it's the same as when the Doctor gets possessed, for example, or is acting erratically, such as how we find the Sixth Doctor in Mind Warp. That's a psychological thing too, rather than being horrific.
It's interesting, isn't it? The different Doctors who've had doppelgangers, and of course, Salamander is the sort of the archetypal Doctor, also playing the opposite, the villain. There isn't a John Pertwee doppelganger story, interestingly, but I'm a great fan of a much maligned story in the Tom Baker era, which is Megalos. One of the reasons being that I think Tom Baker plays Megalos brilliantly, and it's a really good sort of villain performance, and very chilling and interesting to see him getting the opportunity to play the opposite in himself. And of course, we got Davison has his go at Omega, and what are the doppelganger stories in Matt Smith? I like the Cyber Planner is a good
Nightmare in Silver.
In Nightmare in Silver. I think that's a fantastic.
They do a lot of gruesome things to Matt Smith's 11th Doctor. They paint him bright red in the Crimson Horror, and then he becomes a ganger, doesn't he, Charlotte? In that one, so he gets the amorphous sort of face with the blank eyes.
Yeah, I think what it is, though, I've just thought all those Doctors you just named, Classic and Matt being the more modern example, it's more freaky when it's a Doctor that's naturally more comedic. That's naturally jokey and childish. Like, that's what Pat Troughton did, that's what Matt did, that's what Tom did in his own way. So when you're used to that being the usual persona, when they can go cold and calculating and that sort of creepy, that's what makes you go, now I'm not sure. Now I don't know what's going to happen.
Right, yeah. Whereas if William Hartnell suddenly turned unpleasant, you wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Or maybe Colin Baker, who sort of looked like he was a psychopath in his very first story,
You could be right.
Did we have a Capaldi doppelganger? Am I missing something? Was there a Capaldi doppelganger story?
Not that I recall.
No, I
not
don't.
Not precise one.
Let us know in the comments section by all means. I mean, for me, looking back to my childhood, my earliest memory of Doctor Who was from the Pyramids of Mars, and this exact moment where the gamekeeper is crushed between the hard bosoms of two mummies there, and this is one of my earliest memories of anything at all. Never mind of Doctor Who, but every time I see this scene now and watch it again, I think about the little boy that saw this, and this didn't make me a fan at all. It just created a big impression on me, ingrained itself in my memory as it was that show that made me feel that way. And it's also a prime example as well of putting something in my head that I thought I'd seen. It actually shows us very little. I think I'd imagined I'd heard the cracking of his bones and the horrifying noises and sights and sounds, but we see so little, and it's in broad daylight. But for me, as a very tiny child, I was 18 months, 2 years old when I saw this. It obviously had a major effect because I never forgot it right up until I saw the story on VHS sort of 15 years later or something. That's the power that Doctor Who has to frighten. It's very precisely balanced, and it is made up of cliches. And all those stories about scurrying behind sofa arms, they're all true. They're cliches because they're true, I suppose, Sarah.
Yeah, well, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, I think. Yeah, I mean, it's really frustrating for me because I didn't get this, it's the childhood experience, because I was already an adult, but seeing it through my kids. And I mean, they didn't hide behind the sofa, but used to hide behind the cushions. But they still couldn't, tear themselves away from the screen, even when they were genuinely terrified. I remember Josh being about 5 watching The Impossible Astronaut and Day of the Moon, and the silence absolutely terrified him. But there was because at one point I thought, I'm going to have to turn this off. He's screaming. And I was like, no, don't turn it off. Don't turn it off. I need to see what happens. So it's lovely seeing it all play out on there. But yeah, I imagine, when I've gone back to Classic Who and I've seen things, the infamous cliffhanger, in The Deadly Assassin, when you think the Doctor's going to die, and I'm like, well, if I was a kid at the time, I think I would have been worried about that all week. I definitely had that in my mind.
It concerns me, everybody, that we could be freaking out those who are watching us across Rumble, YouTube, and Facebook right now. So it's only right that we go and check the pulse over there, make sure they're still conscious, and we haven't kicked up too many childhood memories that have sent them scurrying behind the sofa there with their smartphone or tablet or whichever device that they're watching and listening to all this on. Let's go and check in with the live chat.
Hi guys, and welcome to Type 40.
Happy to have your company here on Halloween night 2023 for Type 40 Live. And we have Lord Thoth. He was first in with a hi, everyone. Hiya, Lord Thoth. And he followed up with a happy Halloween.
Never happy.
Cheers, Lord Thoth.
Redhead Redemption. I don't know what you're drinking, Redhead, but I hope it's something red. Good afternoon from a frigid Texas. Good afternoon, indeed. Ahoy, shipmates, says Crimpling Doubloon. Ahoy yourself.
Good man.
Ahoy yourself. Yeah. Ahoy yourself. Good evening, everyone, from John Yordan. Good
evening,
back,
John. And I saw that comment on Twitter, John, about trying to shoot it.
We've got a boo from Jack Thursby. No, it didn't work, John. Not this time. Maybe later. Try us again later. Try us again later. Happy Halloween from Paul Flint. Happy Halloween to you too, mate. And we've got a happy Halloween from Time Lord 2023 too. Happy Halloween? Is that the right phrase to use, though?
It doesn't sound right, does it? It sounds strangely paradoxical, doesn't it?
Could this be because we're all British, though? Because we don't really do Halloween the way the Americans do it, do we?
No.
Yeah, no, but did you not do it when you said you didn't do it as a kid, Jan?
It was all Penny for the Guy Fawkes night, bonfire night.
Well,
for me.
there was that, but we had. I used to dress up as Dracula every year. There was a it's not a stretch, is it? And there was always a Halloween party to go to with the pumpkins, the lanterns, and telling ghost stories. None of this trick or treat business. That was 80s that arrived.
Yeah.
That was an American thing that arrived in the 80s. But Halloween was very definitely a thing in my childhood. And but then I was a very sort of morbid gothic sort of chap, and so were my friends and the families we knew. We lived near a very, very spooky forest called Staunton Woods, but we can talk about that a bit later on. We're talking about the demons actually, because it sort of ties in. But what about you two ladies? Were you sort of Halloweeners in the?
You can't. Well, my mum didn't agree with it because she's a very strict Christian. But I used to go to my friends and do it out of defiance.
Right.
But yeah, it was more like party. We didn't really do the trick or treating thing. Because it was like begging, and people didn't agree with it. So no, I don't. What about you, Charlotte?
Well, we moved around a lot when I was a kid, so we didn't really settle in a long place until we were like, oh, new neighbourhood sort of thing.
Right.
But we did have little traditions, like we'd watch Hocus Pocus, me and my sisters, pretty much every Halloween, because we just loved that sort of campness of it.
Who's in Hocus Pocus? Which one's that? Is that
Midler?
Bette Midler, okay, right.
Yeah.
I put a spell on you. So that was like our little tradition we had. And then, I wasn't a massive thing, but like I said, I did like just generally ghost stuff and spooky stuff. Like I'd watch scary things when it wasn't Halloween.
Halloween is Paul Flint's favourite day. Wow, Paul. Fair enough, each to their own. We've got Michael in the chat too there. And Kelly's here as well. Good to see you, Kelly. Simon Ashley says, evening all. And we've got, Retro Doc, Gary Akers says,
hi,
hey,
Gary.
everybody. Darren M's in there with a happy Halloween again, folks.
More
Lots of emojis. Bats, pumpkins, and I think that's a werewolf there, Stephen. I can't quite work out what the last one is, but maybe we'll
it's a bat.
Is it a bat? Oh, okay.
There's 2 pumpkins and a bat and some sparklers, I think.
Oh, there we are.
There you go. Yeah.
Keep them coming, everybody. Darren Bradley's here too. Good to have you back, Darren.
Hi, Darren.
I like the picture, Darren.
Yeah, it's perfect, isn't it, for Halloween?
Yeah.
Good stuff. John Yulden. We've got Happy Halloween from Shah in the live chat.
Hi, Shah. Where are you?
Hello, Shah. Has she fixed her laptop yet?
She must have done, because we have the summoning has worked. All that chanting around the pentagram at around 10 to 8. It's taken a while, but she's here. I'm told she can't come on camera, but she says she'll speak the incantation. Shah, can you hear me? Shah?
Oh wow!
I shall speak. Hello. Well, I'm coming through thick and fast, so get ready for it, because I'm glad I'm the only one who made a bloody effort tonight.
I beg your pardon.
Oh, brilliant.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Do you know what? I've actually just realised this is, if anyone watches this at any other time other than Halloween, they're going to be like, what's going on? In fact, this is how I look in the morning.
Yeah, because we make evergreen content here at Type 40 Live. You look fabulous. So what's the inspiration behind this one then?
I'm not sure, to be honest. Well, the thing is, I thought, how do I make myself look dead? And obviously the idea is mascara. But yeah, I just thought, you know what, I may as well. This panel always has me in stitches, so why don't I make it an actual thing tonight? And it's the only time I'll ever get away with it. And I did bring chocolates for the kiddies if they did turn up at my door, but I'm having them now. So
is that your treat?
It is trick or treat, Charlotte. Trick or treat. But hello, everyone. I'm so sorry.
Well, it's always a treat to see you. We're playing tricks on the live chat right now, and we've got Peter Harrington's in, and so Sam and lots of the regulars, and some new faces too, some new names I haven't seen before. Excellent. Happy Halloween, everyone! Again from T Dwarf Productions. That's Tom, the master of the model making. Yeah. And we have, who else? Darren Bradley says 5 rounds rapid, everyone. Yeah, let's get that one out of the way. And 5.
Yeah, cheers, Darren.
I like it. I like it.
Sticking with the wine, but yeah.
John Yulden asks, what time is the panel doing their live Morris dancing? That is for the after show later on.
Everyone's getting tied up. That's the question.
We're waiting
all right,
for
Charlotte, blimey.
Well, Stephen's the doctor, so we'll have to tell you.
We're waiting for the Headington Quarrymen to turn up, of course. Who were the Morris dancers in the Demons.
Peter Harrington says, I have a Yeti suit on, or it could just be his hairy arms.
Oh, same.
I like it. I like it. More people turning up, like Jonathan Cox there with a hello gang. Hi, Jonathan. Good to have you back. And although the chat is jumping, which means we're having a great show. Stephen is looking suave, says John Yulden. That's for you there, Stephen.
Thank you, John. Bless you.
You do look very very relaxed, Stephen. It's very much a it's very much a Doctor pose.
He's about 2 glasses full relaxed as we speak.
I know, and I told you the story about what happened to that's the bottle. So
is there anything in it?
If I start, yeah, there is glass probably. So if I start bleeding, you'll know why. But was there ever a more appropriate night to bleed than tonight? You know, so
that is a very good point. Yeah, well, exactly. It's all an act.
I like
it. Indeed. Yeah. I'm liking Peter Harrington's. Is that called a thumbnail with the?
It is. Yeah, the Bride of Frankenstein.
Bride of Elsa Lanchester. There. What does it say on it? Monster demands a mate. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Ooh, very very demanding. I love Halloween.
We all love Halloween.
There's lots of Halloween fans here in the live chat. Simon Ashley's been watching The Chase this afternoon, though. Well, I suppose.
Journey into Terror. That is the Halloween episode. The Halloween episode. The only, specifically Dracula and Frankenstein themed episode of History of the Program. So,
Kelly says, I know that Halloween is a bigger deal in North America than in the UK, but it's better than a lot of our other exports. Well said, Kelly. Thanks for being here. Brilliant comments.
Well, as I say, it was a thing when I was a kid, but not in a sort of trick or treaty way, but in the sort of the spooky ghost story, gothic horror sort of way. It was very much around.
Woodhouse 122 also recommends Magic. Was a movie, but I think it was a remake of an earlier film. See, I've never seen it. People keep telling me how to watch this film.
There's a 40s film called Dead of Night, which is the first sort of portmanteau film of different horror stories, and there's a ventriloquist doll in that, and then Magic is a 1970s film. Brilliant performance from Anthony Hopkins, who's sort of possessed by his own doll. I think you directed. Richard Attenborough directed. I think it's a real sort of curious horror film. Recommend that one.
Crimpling the Blue and also co-signs your I Love Meglos.
Often maligned Meglos.
Yeah, justice for Meglos.
Gary Akers is a fan of Crimson Horror.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
I like it.
It's a good one.
I've got no problems with Crimson Horror. It's got Dinah Rigg in it, for God's sake. Can't say fairer than that.
Really good thing about it. I will give it that. I am very heavily critical about the Crimson Horror.
Darren Bradley says, my parents' house backed onto a small woods after seeing mummies ensnared by animal traps in the pyramids of Mars. I daren't go into them for a long time after. That's the thing, isn't it? It's not just horror movies, but shows like Doctor Who. They can put ideas in your head that are really, really hard to shift. I don't know if you found that. Shah, what do you think about the fear factor? Doctor Who's very precise way of scaring us in that non-horrific way.
It's exactly why I loved it. It's exactly why I got into it when I was a kid. I loved being scared as a kid, and I watched The Unquiet Dead. That was the first ever episode I watched, and I was so scared that I just thought,
How old were you, Shah? How old were you, Shah, when you saw Unquiet Dead?
I was 10, 9 or 10.
And you were very, very frightened by it, were you?
Yeah, my granddad showed it to me, sat me down in front of the TV and showed me, and it was more him actually, because he said, oh, it made the hairs on my neck stand up, and nothing scares my granddad, so that scared me.
It's such a good episode, though.
It's fab. It's fab.
People are loving the fancy dress. Everybody at Shah, another legend is born, says John Yules.
It's not fancy dress. What are you talking about? Rude.
Talking about Unquiet Dead, there's a great story that Nick Briggs tells about when they were, before anybody had seen Series 1, apart from the people who'd written it and been involved in it.
Yeah.
And they were a gathering of the writers and their friends, and they'd shown Rob Shearman's Dalek. And so there's Stephen Moffat, Rob Shearman, and Nick Briggs, and a few others around it. I think it's at Rob Shearman's flat. And Stephen Moffat, being the sort of the ultimate trickster of all time, had kept quiet about what he'd got in his bag. And they were watching videos, and they just seen The Long Game, and they're all going, okay, well, that wasn't great, was it? And then Stephen Moffat said, shall I let you in on a little secret about what I've got in my bag? And what he got in his bag,
always a worry,
was what he got in his bag was not The Unquiet Dead, but The Empty Child. And none of them had seen it. None of them had seen it. And he sort of got it. Do you want to see this? and he put it in, and they all watched it, and then they all went, "Oh, that's Doctor Who." I think Mark Gatiss was there as well. And I think they were all in agreement that Unquiet Dead was, in the realms of what they remembered Doctor Who was about, and the series, should be doing. And then they watched Empty Child, and they all went, "You bastard!" Because he sort of nailed it, But do you remember that one? Do you remember that? Was that scary, Charlotte?
Oh, terrifying! But I remember the day after, the Monday after, and all of us, that's all we were doing. And funnily enough, at the time we were learning about World War II, so the teacher just by chance had gas masks around the classroom, and I just remember thinking, I hate this.
Yeah.
But of course you watch it back, and it's still, even today, I think, blimey, I can't believe I was able to watch it. But like I said, I love being scared. It's part of the thrill, isn't it?
Well, I think it's also something that those writers remembered from the classic series, because two of the most potent memories from the Hinchcliffe years, to me and to contemporaries who watched it at the age of 6 and 7 as we did, are the gas masks in Genesis of the Daleks, the heads coming up over the in that first sequence, and the gas masks in Deadly Assassin in the infamous episode.
You cover people's faces, their eyes or their mouth, and that's
there's just something about the gas mask which is it's just a particularly sort of frightening image, isn't it?
And I think as well, I think, God, they were brave. And the moment that just stick with me, it doesn't scare me, but like I said, it's one of these things that just sticks with me, is that transformation with the Doctor.
Oh yes,
it's
Dr. Constantine.
Yes, and like he just starts talking, and you've already met him, so that's genius that you've already met this character. You sort of know them a bit. And then he starts talking. It's a normal scene, and then he very subtly starts to get a few words wrong. There you go. And then he starts to shift. And I remember just thinking, that's what impressed me, actually, thinking, they've gone there. They've not gone, no, that's too scary to show. They've gone, no, we're going to have the sound effects, we're going to have the visuals, we're going to have him physically changing the voice. And then they all got up afterwards in that room. So it
was the eyes.
Yeah, the eyes.
It's an extraordinarily effective use of CGI. And of course, there was the debate about whether they were going to hear the skull cracking.
And they did on the transmission, which I
thought, wow. On the transmission.
Right. They really
did they take it out of the DVD?
Yeah, I think they did, because I remember, unless it's like the Mandela effect, I don't know, but I remember so distinctly hearing it.
And I remember hearing it when it got put out.
Yeah,
I can't now remember what the resolution was, whether it is in it or it isn't in it. It's like in Unearthly Child, there was a debate where Waris Hussein, when the what is it, Cal or Zar? Cal gets brained by Zar, and he finally gets his brains dashed out. And Waris Hussein wanted to have the sound effect of the head being crushed. With us, using, I think they used to sort of slice up marrow or something or whatever to get this. And Verity said, no, absolutely not. We can't have that. That's too acoustically graphic, and she won the argument. You know.
Oh, here we go, John. Yes, it did make the crack noise, but not on the DVD. So they did.
So they removed it on the DVD,
Ah.
isn't it? It's interesting. We're talking about graphic sound, not graphic vision, aren't we? It's like the sound being more frightening. You know,
because
as frightening, something you can see.
Sorry, Charlotte, go on.
No, I was going to say, I think that was more frightening because it just confirmed what exactly you thought, which is this isn't just a mask appearing on his face. No. His body is physically breaking to turn into this thing. And it's that sort of old-fashioned thing of werewolf transformations and that sort of stuff. That you think that the body's actually changing now. And that's what's freaking.
Because it gets repeated, when Nancy gets captured. And the soldier, was it Algae?
Oh, the one Jack was flirting with.
And you never see, but you never see him. You just hear it because it's all focused on her face. And again, that's another really graphic sound you didn't need to see because we'd already had it so beautifully done. At the end of Empty Child.
Got a comment here from Michael who says it's simply because everyone was terrified by gas masks because the dentist used to put you to sleep with them. I think there's some truth. I think there's some truth in that as well. Yeah, back in the day, they would knock you out with those. So keep those comments coming and your memories of being frightened.
I used to love getting the gas at the dentist, but that's another story. We can go there some other time.
You just like the gas and air, Stephen, don't you? That's what you like.
It was a psychedelic sort of trip, but anyway, we'll talk about that.
Keep the live comments coming. Keep them chilling, and if you freak one another out, well, we can't be held responsible for any sleepless nights that may be ahead in the coming few hours. Please like the video if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel, check you're still subscribed, and hit the cloister bell to get all the notifications about what we're doing next and when we're doing it. And just in case you haven't listened to me, you've got to listen to these scary guys.
Click the buttons. Like and subscribe. Click the buttons. Click the buttons. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.
Quite unsurprisingly, Halloween is trending across social media today as people go off to parties, get dressed up, get made up in the way that people have here on the panel here. Most of us have in some way or another gone the extra mile, and that's definitely true out there. And thank you for some of the things that our fabulous companions have been sending in to us too, such as this from Peter Harrington. So this was him getting ready for tonight's edition of Type 40 Live with a few snacks. So he's taken our advice, and the Mega Geek made a plea, didn't he, the other day for people to send in their snacks or them eating Jaffa cakes in particular. And if you notice here, we've got the little doll from Terror of the Autons, and he's got stuck in there. That's an entire packet full of Jaffa cakes, I think, Sarah. There's quite a lot there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Again,
that's a great effort.
Even taking a bite out of one.
I don't know. Remember that advert, that half moon, full moon, total eclipse. Wanted to see that, Peter. What a video are you doing that of?
What is this channel's fetish about Jaffa cakes? I'm not up to speed on this.
It's been a slow burner.
Is there a Jaffa Cakes Doctor Who reference? I know about Jammy Dodgers.
Not yet, but this is our petition.
You're trying to trigger one. Is that what it is?
Right. We are indeed. But from the Whoviverse in the last couple of days, somebody who's made a pretty good effort in trying to own the internet over the last 24 hours is the writer and actress Sadie Miller, of course, daughter of the late Elizabeth Sladen, our fabulous, our beautiful Sarah Jane Smith. And specifically for Halloween, she took this picture of herself and popped it up on social media this morning. I think you can tell exactly what's going on, but she's dressed and is reliving one particular scary Doctor Who moment from 1974. If you've seen this, check it out.
Oh my God.
Fantastic.
Is that a penguin?
I was wondering exactly what it is on Sadie's back. She looks suitably terrified, but she's in the stripy top, isn't she? And that's the pose.
Planet of the Penguins. That was the
Planet of the Penguins.
I remember that terrifying episode.
That's the forthcoming Christmas special. Just spoiled that for people.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is a recreation of a moment from Planet of the Spiders, isn't it? The John Pertwee's final story as the Doctor that Elizabeth Sladen was in, and yeah, I think this is lots of fun, and obviously it's gone semi-viral the way that Doctor Who stuff tends to. Had you seen this one, Shah?
No, but I love it. Doesn't she look just like her? It really makes me miss her when I see things like that. Yeah, I mean, you know my thoughts on Planet of the Spiders. So,
what are your thoughts on Planet of the Spiders, Shah?
I hate it. I mean, I actually love it. It's in a weird way. I have a strange love for it because I'm terrified of spiders. Like it's actually not even funny. It's a genuine phobia.
But they're not very convincing, though, are they? Are they?
No, but it doesn't matter. Like it honestly doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
It's the idea. But if I'm being honest, it does make me laugh though because the voices I just find hilarious. Like why do they sound like that?
Sounds like a really grumpy lollipop lady, doesn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it just makes me laugh. But at the same time, I'm like, God, I genuinely would be just a heap on the floor if that was me.
Do you know about how they got Liz prepared for that show? John Pertwee used to bring in a spider every day leading up to that big. Yeah, I was watching an interview. It started off really small, and they got slightly bigger just so she could do the big spider on the back because she'd got arachnophobia.
Yeah, that big spider
somebody in the chat will let me know if that's true. I've not just made that up.
That's really sweet of him, but at the same, that's really sweet of him. But that does make me think, oh my God, I'd hate him for it. But at the same, but that's it works though, doesn't it? That's meant to be a genuine way to rid your fear, isn't it? It's exposure. But I don't want to be exposed to them, thank you.
Yeah,
apparently so. So well done, Sadie, with that picture there. Why on earth would she do such a thing? Well, obviously it's partly to reconnect with her mother too, and that legend of Doctor Who, and to bond with us as well. I think this is what I mean about the Doctor Who community being one big family like that. It really is lovely, and it's all for the love of Who, just like Nicholas Courtney here in this fabulous picture from the Demons. There he is peering at the heat barrier there, I'd like to think. So yes, comments coming about your scariest Doctor Who memories from when you were a child or in adulthood. It's all fair. You can tell us whatever you were frightened of, even if it was the Jammy Dodgers. We won't tell a soul. Honestly, we won't. And yes, and whilst I remember, don't forget the Type 40 podcast. That is out across all major podcatchers there. These are just some of our most recent episodes. There was our review of Father's Day a few weeks ago there. Myself, Stephen and Sarah, we were on there, did a deep dive review of that 2005 classic. That's a pretty scary story in itself, isn't it? All over the map, scary. And there's Ian and I, when we got together to chat to Philip Roy about his brand new upcoming Doctor Who fan film, and lots of other episodes, reviews, previews, interviews, geek outs, and deep dives there, all on the podcatcher of your choice, or you can find them at our home feed at type40.podbean.com. You're watching Type 40 Live, our Halloween night special with more Jaffa cakes and lots more to get into now. Thank everybody for joining us. Keep the comments coming. Let's connect with our main feature. I think it's about time.
Jaffa cakes again.
Jaffa cakes. Yes, we're going to go on a trip back in time to the early 70s. So this was before I was even born, and to a time when Doctor Who had gone through sort of one phase of massive popularity, and then in the late 60s it had sort of nearly all come to a close, hadn't it? When the BBC thought it had reached the end of its natural life, and colour was coming in, and they weren't really sure what they could replace it with, and so Doctor Who kind of initially carried on sort of by default, really, until it became popular all over again, thanks largely to the leadership of John Pertwee as the third incarnation of the Doctor. He had a very different idea about about the brand of heroism I think that he could bring to the role, and the team of Terrence Dicks and Barry Letts. They had a very different kind of relationship, a synergy together, and were on the same page with the kind of stories that they wanted to tell and the way that they could tell them, obviously to the BBC's same strict budget, and staying on the right side of editorial guidelines about how scary or not they could make their various stories that would make up the average season. For the concluding story of season 8, we would be transported up. They looked like a lot of B roads, didn't they? To just a standard English village. It's got a village green. It's got a little pub. It's got a maypole and all these things. But it bears the name Devil's End, which isn't the most subtle of clues. Is it about what we were going to get over those 5 episodes? But as I always say, do we really go to Doctor Who for subtlety, Charlotte?
It depends what we feel like.
I've just left something upstairs that I'm going to need in a sec. Can I just leave you talking? I'll be about 30 seconds.
Sir.
Wait there.
Yeah, we'll chant amongst ourselves while we wait for it.
Okay, so while Stephen is getting whatever it is he's getting,
it's probably a crystal ball.
We are reviewing for Halloween night 2023 The Demons by Guy Leopold, first broadcast between the 22nd of May and the 19th of June 1971. That season finale, I suppose, as we now call them, of season 8. And here is a synopsis, just in case it's been a while since you've seen it. A televised evacuation. I haven't even been. I'm the only one on the panel not drinking. I'm the only one on the panel not drinking. A televised excavation is due. Take 3. A televised excavation is due to commence at an ancient burial ground known locally as the Devil's Hump. A white witch in the nearby village of Devil's End warns of terrible consequences. Fortunately, the Doctor is present when an invisible force field cuts the village off from the rest of the world. It's up to him to break the spell the Master holds over the locals and thwart the overthrow of the Earth by an alien entity that resembles the Devil. Dun, dun, dun. Spectacular stuff. And when it came to these seasons of Doctor Who, all the way through the 70s, they really did go the extra mile for the finales. They were usually 6 parts. I've never been quite sure why this one was just 5, but they tended to be that little bit longer, that bit more spectacular, and would leave children, I think, quaking in their armchairs over the months that Doctor Who would be off screen in between. Now, the named writer on the credits of The Demons is Guy Leopold. Guy Leopold doesn't exist, which is a spooky fact in itself. It's a pseudonym concocted by Barry Letts, the producer, and the writer Robert Sloman. Now, why did he do this? Well, there were BBC rules at the time, which meant that the producer couldn't write for the series himself and sort of advertise the fact, because it wasn't his job. He was a producer. So Barry Letts, he came up with Leopold because it was his middle name, but the Guy part, that was the name of Robert Sloman's son. So as they worked on this script together, it was a way of sort of taking ownership of it, but without putting out under one name or the other. And that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the stories of how the Demons made its way to the screen, isn't it, Stephen? It's a fascinating story. In some ways, it's blockbuster Doctor Who, and yet there are lots of little myths around it, aren't there? Lots of anecdotes. The location itself is a personality all of its own. The Demons casts a very definite spell of its own over Doctor Who fans, doesn't it? There's no story quite like it. Why do you think that is?
There's various reasons why it's so well remembered by the generation that grew up with it. Of course, never mind Professor Horner, who's a character in The Demons. Where's Professor Horton tonight? Who's the only person who's old enough to remember the flipping thing? My memories begin with the Sea Devils, which is 1972. But Simon remembers Bok, and I long to hear, specifically what his memories are, which particular scenes it was. But for those who were old enough to remember the Demons, it's very, very well remembered, and it got a reputation for a long time as the greatest Doctor Who story of all time. And Doctor Who fandom going through its phases of, debunking things that have become sort of enshrined as shibboleths. It went through a phase of everybody slagging it off and saying, no, it's not the greatest, it's shit. And now we've come out the other side, I think, and people are sort of a little bit balanced about it and say, there are people who are, we can be, that's a very scary sound. That sounded like a sound effect from Quatermass in the Pit. One of the reasons why it's so well remembered, one of the reasons why it's so well remembered is because it was one of the repeated stories. So very few stories got more than their first airing in the 70s. So it was repeated at Christmas, and in fact, it got higher ratings in the repeat Christmas 71 than it got when it first went out. The most remembered story, the most fun remembered story of the 70s is the Sea Devils, because it was repeated twice. It got the Christmas repeat and it got its surprise repeat on the spring bank holiday of May the 25th, 1974. Green Death is well remembered because it was repeated the Christmas repeat. Planet of the Spiders is remembered because it was repeated. Genesis of the Daleks, etc.
Because I suppose children do like repetition, don't they? It's one of the reasons why the Teletubbies used to replay the entirety of each episode within a 20-minute slot.
It's hard to remember.
I love that shit.
Sorry. Of course, the reprise was very important, but it's hard to remember something you've only seen once. So, and in the 70s, because revived series fans. Young fans are so used to being able to watch it over and over again. As soon as it's over, you can watch it a second time. And so it wasn't possible. And if you missed it, then you missed the experience. You'll miss the memory, So it being on twice is hugely significant. What else is significant about it? It catches a mood, I think. The Demons. It catches a mood of a particular sort of English horror film that's becoming sort of prevalent in which was the phrase was coined by the director Piers Haggard for the film The Blood on Satan's Claw, which is 1971. Folk horror, the horror that focuses not on castles, not on vampires, not on the story of Dracula or whatever, or the streets of Victorian London, but on the strange, mysterious goings on in villages,
the Wicker Man.
Rural life. Well, the Wicker Man is probably the greatest sort of. Well,
I had to go and check, Stephen, as to when the Wicker Man came out.
73.
It came out after this was broadcast, because I thought it's very, very Wicker Man. I thought, well, maybe it's a homage. Maybe they'd seen the Wicker Man, but no. So maybe the director and producers of the Wicker Man actually saw the Demons. And
well, what. I think I've got a theory about this because I'm fascinated about this, and it's one of my favorite areas of. I love all sorts of horror, and my love of horror was actually sort of created, I think, by Doctor Who and the Hinchcliffe years. But there was a play for today, December 1970, Christmas 1970, by an extraordinary writer called John Bowen. It was called Robin Redbreast. Which has these themes of strange, mysterious goings on, witchcraft in a rural setting, and it was broadcast around about the time they'd have been writing the Demons. And I've got a theory that they might have that Barry Letts. I think that the ideas came. The first idea for the story came from Robert Sloman, which was inspired by. The von Daniken, Eric von Daniken was a Swiss writer who wrote a book called Chariots of the Gods, ? Which is all about the theory that aliens may have influenced our civilization. It influenced Nigel Neal, of course. And Robert Sloman came up with that idea, why don't we do a story with that idea about aliens influencing the development of our civilization? Then Barry Letts was fascinated by Dennis Wheatley and the stories of the occult and the supernatural. So he then thought, why don't we have the alien being what we think is the devil? So he brought the sort of the satanic element into it, and then thought, actually, it'd make a great finale to the season, have the master being the leader of the coven. But I've got the whole sort of folk horror thing kind of begins with Robin Redbreast, and then you've got Blood on Satan's Claw, and you've got The Devils is another film.
So do you think then that
there's a thing that's happening in English cinema?
Stephen, do you think that Barry Letts as a producer was dialed in to that? Did he go to the cinema a lot and look at that, or with these?
Well, Robin Redbreast was a TV play, so okay. And he'd be watching TV all the time, or possibly be around the BBC with the people who were making it, etc. So, but I think all the great producers of Doctor Who were absolutely plugged into what was going on in the culture at the time. Hinchcliffe was very much, as he said, reading what was going on in science fiction, looking at films that were going on at the time. Barry Letts would have been the same, and so I think certainly been influenced by other things that were going on in literature and in television and cinema.
I was interested by talk in The Demons, because I rewatched this again the other night for this conversation, and I was really interested by talk of the age of Aquarius. And that, to me, that conjures up images of Woodstock, of people dancing, long hair, semi-naked, banging tambourines, all that kind of thing. It was a hippie kind of new age movement, wasn't it, from the late 60s, stretched into the early 70s.
The first what's the name of the festival? The English festival that happens every year.
Oh, Glastonbury.
Glastonbury. The first one's a year before this, in 1970. So that's all tying in hippiedom and folk horror. There's a strong sort of relationship between sort of the youth and these sort of older ideas and paganism. Are all sort of bedfellows at this time, very much so.
Because that term, it is an astrological term, isn't it? But it was kind of, I wouldn't say it was hijacked as such, but it was part of
it's a
popular...
song. It's a song in the musical Hair.
That's where I know it.
Which is Hair 1969, I think. It's
60,
right at the...
66, 67, a little bit early.
Is it that early? Okay,
yeah.
Right. Okay, yeah. But there's very much a sort of an interest in paganism, which is the hippie movement and etc. Is all sort of feeding into the atmosphere that creates folk horror and Doctor Who doing the demons, I suppose.
And speaking about the atmosphere, this one was directed by Christopher Barry. He'd vowed never to come back to Doctor Who. I think various frustrations, bad experiences, whatever you want to call it. So I do wonder what attracted him to come back to the series and work on this story. Maybe it was that aesthetic. Maybe it was the ambition of it, because it's the way that the action is divided. I think the story is divided between various locations there, Charlotte, between just average everyday settings like a village green, a little pub, a church, a beautiful, not a particularly ornate cathedral, but it's just like a normal church that you'd find in any English village. There's something very homespun about it, isn't there? But it sort of connects with what we were speaking about earlier on. It's a village that we've all spent time in, or maybe you've got relatives who live somewhere like this. And that's what's unsettling about it. It's the most placid, unthreatening place, but under the surface.
Well, yeah, I think the atmosphere, and I think what I love and rewatching it like I did it like you, I rewatched it over the weekend. It's the amount of time. That's what always sort of impresses me with the demons. It's the fact that they take time to establish this village, to establish the White Witch. Like, she could have just been a couple of lines and then that could have been, oh, now she's useful because of obviously magic. But no, you get to know her. You get to see that the village don't really believe in her. You get to see her sort of being the one to go, yes, I'm going to go to this camera crew. I'm going to make a nuisance of myself. So she's very much established and she's not just a side character. But what I found, and I forgot actually watching it again, is how clever it is to have the BBC itself as part of the storyline. That they reference themselves. And it's this sort of, if you think about when this would have been broadcast, this was way before the likes of Most Haunted and those sort of shows we got in the early 2000s, where it was go to a haunted house and film yourself.
Yeah.
And here it's exactly nearly the same setup with the camera crew, with being on Halloween night.
And it's what regional news does to this day, isn't it? They go out somewhere, sometimes in the middle of a field somewhere, and film something which is of local interest, I suppose.
Yeah, it's like they've got the local professor who doesn't like them, and it's just so many little things that didn't have to be in there, but then they had to be, because it just sets up the atmosphere. And the thing that I also love, and they mentioned BBC Three, which also freaked me out, because I was like, that was the thing then. But the thing that really I think so good about this, it's the two sort of opposing arguments that run the whole way through it. That you've got science, you've got things you can explain, and that's the Doctor sort of field, and that's the whole scene in the beginning with Joe with the car. It's him sort of saying, no, it's science, it's trick of the hand, it's what you know. But then you've got the witch, and you've actually got incidences in the story where you go, no, actually, is it magic? Is there actually something that isn't science? And you're sort of going back and forward in the whole story, which one's right? And I honestly think it almost finishes by saying they're both right. They both have a place, they both do something.
I think what has to be remembered is how shocking this story must have been at the time, because up until episode 3, when he has the slideshow with the devils, etc., when he explains that what we think of as magic is in fact psionic science, throughout those first 2.5 episodes, it must have been mind-blowing to the audience at the time, because the Doctor seems to be believing in magic. He says that woman is absolutely right. You go, hang on a minute, but the whole point of this program is debunking magic. The whole point of this program is saying the supernatural is absolute nonsense. So there's a wonderful sort of confounding of expectations, isn't there, of the John Pertwee Doctor seeming to, for the first 2.5 episodes, to be a believer in magic. And it's only when you get the slideshow that he explains, actually, we think it's magic, but in fact, to use the Tom Baker phrase, nothing is inexplicable, only unexplained. But it must have been a remarkable surprise to the audience at the time.
Well, it makes you sit up and take notice. If the Doctor's, looking like he's believing it, then we should be believing it as well.
It was a surprise to me when I first, because of course, as I keep banging on about, we didn't get to see the stories, and it had been on before I was born, so I'd never seen it. I had the Barry Letts novelization. I bought this in Christmas 1976. And if anybody's in any doubt about how to pronounce the title, on page 83, Barry Letts says a note at the bottom: pronounce demons, D-E-E-M-O-N-S, because people sometimes think it might be Daemons, although John Pertwee just pronounced it as Daemons at one point. So I'd read it a couple of times, but then in the October of 1989, everybody knows about Longleat, and we'd had the 5 Faces in the November of 1981. But in 1983, about the October, a month before the 5 Doctors was on, there was a showing of Doctor Who stories at the BFI, and the very first one was the Demons, and they found a colour copy in North America, a Betamax copy that wasn't broadcast standard, and they showed it at the BFI. Barry Letts introduced it, and it was just so exciting to be able to see it. The first time anybody had seen it in this country since 1971, and got there just in time. My dad put us up in a hotel. It was wonderful. And Barry Letts stood up and introduced it and said, we're all very lucky to have this copy. We've got it from America. It's not broadcast standard. We can show it today. And it was very sort of fuzzy, but it was, we were seeing the Demons. But it was a surprise to me watching that story for the first time ever, having read the novel a couple of times when I was a kid. I was completely surprised by, hang on a minute, the Doctor seems to be aligning himself with this daft old witch, you know. So, and then of course the story being about incorporating, co-opting ideas from the supernatural, the Dennis Wheatley world, but then doing the Doctor Who on them and saying, actually, that's not supernatural at all. It's another sort of science. But it's right. I think people get how clever the story is to lure you into thinking it's a Dennis Wheatley horror sort of story, but then doing the Doctor Who on it and explaining it in scientific terms.
I suppose that a story like that, a balancing act like that, and to keep us wondering about that same dichotomy you're describing there, Stephen. That would only work with an actor as consummate as Jon Pertwee in this role that he'd been playing for now 2 full seasons. Very much into his stride. I mean, I think that Pertwee was pretty much in his stride right from the get-go. But by this point, he's uber confident in his grasp of the character, what this series can do, his relationship with the audience. And I think coming back to this again, it's been a long time since I've watched this, a good 6 or 7 years. Coming back to this again, I noticed so much nuance in this performance, and the way that he communicates, not just the things that are at stake, but that duality as well. So we're not sure what the Doctor does or doesn't believe. It's a fantastic performance, and he's backed, of course, by Katie Manning as Jo Grant and Nick Courtney back as Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart there too. He's separated from the Brigadier from a large chunk of it, but the Brigadier gets quite a lot of screen time, I thought, Sarah. In fact, so do UNIT generally, don't they? There's a lot of UNIT personnel. We've got Benton, and we've got Captain Yates, and we've got another character as well we'll talk about in a little while. But we see in this story, what strikes me about this, and I think this is why this could be considered the pinnacle of the Pertwee era. I don't know if I'm qualified to say this because I'm not a huge Pertwee fan, but in the UNIT stories in particular, UNIT themselves are either portrayed as a bunch of complete nutcases next to psychos that go around blowing stuff up and chinning people out, or they're completely inept and can't fire a gun in the right direction. In this story, they're not only a lean, functional military outfit, but what I really like about them are the smaller moments where they're going up against something which they don't understand the nature of. They've just got every faith in their commanding officer and in the Doctor, and so they take on Bok the Demon, for example, next to fearlessly to get this job done, even though it doesn't look like they're going to succeed.
Well, so yeah, they're a well-oiled machine at this point. You know, you've got the leadership there and the hierarchy, and there's a lovely little scene where Joe is kicking off because they're going to blow things up, and when the Doctor snaps at her, you know, that he's your superior officer, you need to have respect for him, you know, just to really remind you, you know, you're talking out of turn, Joe. But yeah, I mean, Brigadier gets all the best lines. Brigadier and Yates, I think, they're just amazing in this.
I think Yates and Benton are really strong in this, and of course they're out of uniform for the majority of it as well. So I think we see a different sort of wrinkle to their relationship. Are you a big fan of this era, Shah?
Never seen this episode in my life. So but in terms of the era, yes, I love the era. I love Jon Pertwee. I just think he's so sexy. But I don't mean that in a crude way, just like the suaveness of him. And he is, if I could travel with any of them, apart from Matt Smith, of course, then it would be Pertwee. I just feel like it would be a lot of fun.
Go for the silver top with the Inverness cape. Yeah.
Dan, you said you're not. Are you still not a fan of Pertwee? Is this hard for you to come round to?
No, I wouldn't say so, but it has taken me a long time. We've spoken before about.
But you're still resistant. You're still resistant, are you?
Not so much.
Do you find yourself watching it and going, "Okay, I can sort of see what's going on, but he's still not my Doctor."
He's not outwardly quirky enough for him to be the Doctor that I grew up watching, and he's so formidable.
But Davison isn't quirky. Davison isn't quirky, and he's your favourite, is he?
On the surface, on the surface, at first glance he isn't, but because I watched
Isn't
that.
He the least quirky of all.
Because I watched that performance so closely, I noticed all the subtleties to what Davison did. I took ownership of that character from the start, and so every little different way that he would interpret a line, I latched onto that, and I sort of took it all in. Whereas and of course I lived through that era. Whereas this character and this era, I discovered piecemeal form, kind of the way that Charlotte would be now on VHS tapes through the 90s, scattered in between other Doctors. And so for me, getting a bit of him every 3 or 4 months, he was always a formidable authority figure. And who seemed next to unflappable, and that wasn't the Doctor that I recognised. Now, coming back to stories, particularly when they're as strong as this, and he is so central to everything, and we get to see him do lots of different things in this, and put in real danger as well. There's a moment in particular where we don't know if the Doctor's going to make it, which is ridiculous. It gets me every time. That's what I love about Doctor Who. We know the Doctor. He's the central character. He's not going to perish, particularly in the second episode of a new story. But when they do some things to him, such as when there's that rush of energy, and the hump is open, and the Doctor is frozen, and they can't get a heartbeat. Charlotte, this moment, I couldn't remember how this was resolved, and the sight of Pertwee, who, as I say, is next to, he doesn't appear to be even remotely scared most of the time, but here he is. He looks like he's expired.
I think he frequently looks. He recognises terror, but he manages to sort of stoically do it.
Dead in the eye anyway.
I don't think there's ever been a Doctor who could communicate that what he was looking at was more terrifying than anything else in the universe.
The subtleties in Pertwee's performance, I can see them now. I've seen the stories more times.
I suppose. I mean, I'm very sort of. Very, a bit of an activist about this. I think, for me, the 2 greatest performances as Doctor Who were Pertwee and Tom Baker up to Horror of Fang Rock, after which it changes. But I just from an aesthetics of acting point of view, because they're playing it absolutely for real, There's an aesthetic of realism that's going on with Letts and Dix and Pertwee and Hinchcliffe and Holmes and Tom Baker, and that is Doctor Who for me, quintessentially Doctor Who for me. It's
fascinating hearing Dan speak about Pertwee, because obviously I discovered John Pertwee many years later, but he immediately was the Doctor. He just strides out that confidence and that gravitas.
Absolutely.
Even though he knows he could be going to his death, I mean, he even says that, in the final episode, and there's just so much to admire with that. But yeah, he does. You believe everything he says. The danger. It is the end of the world because the Doctor says it's the end of the world, and the eyes convey it all. And every time he's on screen, he just commands everything, and you're really with Jo, when she goes to sacrifice himself, and he's just so, he is lovable, but not in that kind of like adorable where this is somebody to be admired and looked up to, and it would be a terrible thing if he was no longer in the world. I just think there's nobody like him.
It's a very masculine character, and I think there's a patrician quality, a fatherly quality too. But I think that what you're picking up on there is correct too, Shah. I think there's a raw masculinity and a kind of a sexual allure to the character.
But I don't mean that. Yeah, but I don't mean that in a crude way. I just mean
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
Sex appeal, but in it like, I know what I mean.
It helps. I want to move on a little bit because we're losing track of the conversation here.
Can I just make one last point about it? One last point about John Pertwee's acting. Now, 1971 is an extraordinary year in cinema. There's a number of extraordinary horror films. There's extraordinary violent films at this time. You've got A Clockwork Orange. You've got Straw Dogs, but you've also got Get Carter in 1971, and there's a particular sort of naturalism, a realism in the performance of Michael Caine. I was watching this the other day, and I thought, what was this reminding me of? And I thought, the Doctor that most aligns with a particular sort of realistic, naturalistic, very focused on I Am a Needle performance in the early 70s is John Pertwee. I put The Demons on again for the first time. Just how relaxed and natural he is. There's no attempt to sort of put anything over or be the Doctor to the audience. He's completely forgotten the camera's there as far as I'm concerned, and he's just inhabiting the person that he's playing completely realistically. And each time I watch him, I'm impressed over and over again by how sort of tasteful and how sort of ahead of his time is the wrong phrase, but just there's nothing sort of demonstrative or panto about it. It's real for me.
Well, it should be. On paper, it should be, shouldn't it?
Yeah. And looking at the villain of the piece, one of the villains of the piece is the Master, played by Roger Delgado here, as always, or the Reverend Magister.
Talking to Suave, Shah.
This was the culmination, wasn't it, of the entire season? And there was a sort of arc. The Master was the villain of every single story. So by this point, I would imagine that the children weren't that surprised that the Master would turn up there in the dog collar and in residence in the vicarage. Again, it's a similar, when it comes to the Doctor and the Master, this relationship between the two of them, they don't actually spend that much of this story in scenes with one another, come to think of it. But you're very, very aware that the game between them, the match is constantly going on. They're very aware of one another, and it's almost inconsequential that they're not face to face pretty much until the end of the story. I think Roger Delgado in this is having the time of his life. But then again, when isn't he, Charlotte? It's this is the thing. It's a part he could really get his teeth into, and he just seems to relish it all in my eyes.
I think this part was showing especially I feel like in Demons, that for me this shows
specifically in this story
the brilliance of the Master, and especially classic. And this is what a couple of shows back I was like, this is what I want back now with Master, because think about it. We don't know how long he's been in this village. He had to plan. He had to make the current vicar go away. He had to embed himself in the village. He had to convince everybody he was this new vicar. And then you learn out later, he's just used it to get all the dirty gossip, all the dirty secrets from everybody. This is why. So he can then...
Why. Sorry, Charlotte.
Oh no, but that's what I'm saying. This is the cleverness and the planning and the sort of levels he's gone to get this plan in motion. And that's what I just love about this Master.
And he never gets like that stressed out. If an attempt to kill him goes wrong, he's always got another one. It's just like, right, you get the gun, you do this.
For a good chunk of this story, he's won. He's got exactly what he wanted. Yeah. He's got the power. He's got the demon. Yeah. He's got the village. And the Doctor, even at the end, he doesn't. He almost tries to win, but doesn't want to, which is brilliant. When the Doctor's like, "No, don't give the power to me." So that's what I mean. You just see, and like you said, in most of the scenes here, unless right near the end, it's when he has to go a bit more extra with his performance. But otherwise, he's just quiet. He's quite meticulous. And he's just like, no, I'm in control. I've got what I want. The Doctor won't faze me.
Yeah. And again, and because we love the Master so much, at the end of episode 3, it actually looks like he's in danger because he is the cliffhanger. And there's part of you that's like, oh no, we don't want anything to happen.
He's kind of the guy that you love to hate by that point. He's been a regular cast member for the entire season. I mean, in this, I do feel that he's giving us a bit of a Vincent Price impersonation at times.
Him.
But that's no bad thing either, because it fits completely in with the story. It never goes cartoon with Roger Delgado, and yet he gets to wave his arms around. He's in a great big red cloak. He's doing all these cliche things, but because he plays it so straight down the line. In fact, they all do. You could say Katie Manning as Jo Grant again. It's another very very sensitive performance, because it is on the surface a damsel in distress. She falls out of Bessie going at high speed and bumps her head, for example. She's nearly sacrificed. All these things nearly happen to her, but Katie Manning never plays it as that sort of whimpering female. She plays it as the Doctor's best friend and as a member of UNIT. And so that it never shatters the believability of it, and it never drifts into cartoon. And that's something that this story could so easily have done.
It sounds like it on paper, and I never watched it, but I just but I will do now. I will. I've seen clips, and that's kind of enough. But I don't know why I haven't watched it, because Roger Delgado's master, no one will ever come close to him. It just will never happen. And I think the funny thing is that because I didn't mean to cut you off, Charlotte. I thought you were actually pausing for breath. So I thought I might nip in. But what I love is that's the template now, because what made me laugh about that is it's so true, because now every time the master shows up, or mistress, whoever it is, it's always that there is, like you said, so much planning going into it, and they build up so much for the Doctor just to literally to make one minor mistake in anything, and then it's one minor hiccup in the master's I may as well just reveal myself now then. Do you know what I mean? He was building up all of that.
Either a community or a business or
a lot of effort.
Some sort of political situation. He does, yeah. There's a character in this called Sergeant Osgood, who's a unit officer who's working. It reminds me, obviously now in hindsight, of the Malcolm Taylor character from Planet of the Dead. He's got the NHS glasses on, and he's the guy because the unit, the half of UNIT and UNIT's mobile HQ, which is a fabulous thing. It looks like a really long horse box that Nicholas Courtney gets to sort of hang around in the doorway of now and again, sort of looking exasperated and shouting at Sergeant Osgood here. Why aren't you making this quicker? What's going on? But again, it makes you feel like UNIT is this functional team of people. And this character, he was never seen before, and he was never seen again. But it's wonderful, because he's on one side of the heat barrier, the Doctor's on the other, and he's sort of talking him into sort of assembling this machine and to resolving the situation and towards the point where they can get rid of this heat barrier and obviously move on and take the master's plan down. But this, of course, this is Osgood, Sergeant Osgood, whose daughter would eventually turn up in the show in 2013, the character that Ingrid Oliver plays.
Nepotism in UNIT.
What's more interesting about Osgood is, the actor, the other part he played in Doctor Who.
He was in Revelation of the Daleks.
Yeah. Do you know what the part he played was?
He played the disembodied head of.
He's the head of Stengel. Yes, that's right. Yes, yeah. He's the kill me now, Natasha character.
That's a scary moment. That did when I was a kid. That really did. I mean, even now when I watch that, fabulous stuff. But this is a really memorable character, and I do wonder now, were they looking at him when they put together Malcolm Taylor for Planet of the Dead?
I always felt sorry for Sergeant Osgood. He was doing the best he could. He's getting it from the Doctor and the Brigadier, and what used to make me laugh was how everyone's saying, "There's no time," but I've got time to explain it all again for you, dear chap, and then I've got time to go for a little ride on my motorbike. But then we've still got this countdown, and poor Osgood. But and then when it breaks, and he's got to do it again. But again, it's so human, that not everything It's so swish. You know, you look at like sci-fi things. There's always these really swish people who can do anything, and it just happens really effortlessly. And I love it that it is just.
Well, you know
really
what, Sarah?
scraping stuff together.
I don't think it's that it's just very human. I think it's actually very, very British.
Mm-hmm.
I think to see something that's put together on a wing and a prayer, and
it's so ramshackle,
yeah. And you know, I don't know if this is going to work or not. And yeah, I can build it, but it's probably going to explode as soon as I turn it on. I think that's a very British way of communicating the adventurous spirit, I suppose, that have a go mentality, and a Heath Robinson way of finding solutions to problems with technology. And that's what it taps into.
I love the fact that the other thing that I think is so clever in this story, and I think this and the moment with him feeds into this, is they separate all the characters off. And it's really like, it's not obvious ways that you think in a typical Doctor Who sort of scary story they're going to do it. So you do have that separation with the Brig and the Doctor. So poor Osgood is like the in-between man. And I just love the scene when like Osgood's like, oh, this is happening with the machine. And the Brig just sort of looks at his radio and says, Doctor, did you get any of that? Because he doesn't understand any of it. So poor Osgood, like I said, is this in-between sort of trying to get the sci-fi into Brig's head, and the Brig's like, I don't care, will it work? Yes, right, we'll go.
Yeah, absolutely.
The way that the characters come together, not just as colleagues, but as friends who trust one another and who care about one another, I think is only enhanced by the addition of Damaris Heyman as Miss Olive Hawthorne. She seems to fit in so well. And coming back and watching this story again after a little bit of a break, she's not actually in it as much as I remembered. But the fact that in the scenes that she is in, she's so memorable. She has to be one of the most idiosyncratic and unforgettable of Doctor Who's guest characters, Stephen. They behave, and the way that she speaks, the way that she acts, it's like she's a woman who's far older than her years.
I have to say, when I first saw it in 1983 at the BFI, and of course, you know, our generation, we grew up with the Target novels. So, you know, this hadn't been on since 71. So you'd read it several times as a book, and you got in your head a particular idea of a character. And frequently, probably, you know, 6 or 7 times out of 10, when you got to see the story, the actor, the actress, whoever was playing it was nothing like your idea of what they were going to be like. And sometimes it would be a lovely surprise, and you go, oh, that was not like I imagined it, but this is far better. And at the time, I have to tell you, this was a horrible surprise. Damaris Heyman, when I thought she's like a really frightening combination of Margaret Thatcher and Lava Ward. And I wasn't very fond of either of them, to be honest. And my Uncle Graham, when Lalla Ward came on the television, he goes, it's all donkey dentures. And so Olive Hawthorne, played by Damaris Heyman, I really didn't like, and I didn't think it was a very good performance. I've since come, like a lot of these things, you go through a phase with something, you know, because I think I've talked before about how the Ark in Space novelization made it seem like Ridley Scott's Alien, and when I actually saw it in 1985, and the special effects weren't very good, I was appalled. And then eventually you come out this and you evaluate what it is. And now I watch Damaris Heyman, and she's very endearing on the commentaries and in the interviews, and she's very knowledgeable about the Latin and the Greek. In fact, she's corrected everybody. It's not demons or diamonds. It's not demons or daemons. It's daimons. Daimons? Yeah, I think that's how it's supposed to be. She says the Greek. But that was my first version of seeing it. I really didn't like her at all. But I don't mind her now
I don't. She steals the scenes that she's in. I think because she just, especially with Benton, they work so well together. When when he's.
But she is mad as a hatter, though, isn't she?
She is mad, but yeah, it's brilliant because Benton's there pacing about, not knowing what to do, just wanting to do something, and she's just there, la 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 la. Let's get the tea.
Do you think she quite fancies Benton as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Just a bit.
A fertility dance.
That's the impression that I get. Yeah, dragging him off.
At the end, it's perfectly blatant.
Crimpling Doubloon in the live chat here on YouTube says, I think Damaris's cloak was one that was given to her by her friend Margaret Rutherford.
According to the commentary in episode 1, yes, it was given to her by Margaret Rutherford.
Margaret Rutherford was a veteran actress who played Miss Marple, hadn't she, at the cinema very successfully over several films in the 1950s, I think, the 50s into the early 60s, maybe.
She was in the Centrinians films famously as well. Yeah, she was, and a lot of great character parts.
That kind of.
I just loved her from that, like her first proper bit when she's with the telly, when she goes, "Oh, I'm a witch, a white one, of course," and then like there's no break, and it's just so believable. Of course, you're a white witch, you're a good one, but it's.
I suppose I was probably prejudiced because I was at that time sort of despising my mother, who got very, very into astrology and was just about to become a born-again Christian, which ruined my teenage years. So I think there was a personal prejudice against superstitious women, which I think I probably still have. But anyway, that's another story.
But again, but the way she plays it, she's so. But I mean, some of the stuff she has to say, like, I cast the runes this morning. It's just, like Charlotte was saying,
Like I just got the milk in. I just put the cat out.
Yeah. Of course she did.
Another misunderstanding for years, because she says when she whacks whoever it is it one of the Morris dancers over their head, doesn't she?
Yeah, she clubs the Morris dancer over the head with her crystal ball.
I hit him with my reticule, she says. And for years, and she gets the crystal, I thought a reticule was another word for a crystal ball. But a reticule is actually, does anybody else know what the word reticule means? It's a handbag, basically. So she's. I hit it with my reticule, because it's in the handbag.
Oh, so blunt.
Yeah, but I thought for years I was going around saying, "Oh, another word for crystal ball is reticule."
That's what I thought.
When in fact it's actually French for handbag. There we are. So
fantastic facts here on Type 40 Live.
I know. Every day's a school day.
For Halloween 2023 here across YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook. We're having a nice chilled out review of this 1971 classic starring John Pertwee, Katie Manning, Roger Delgado, and everybody else. But it has reached that time, everybody. Now, maybe all this scary talk has had you losing a drop or two. I'm happy to say you can pee freely without losing frame now. We've got the perfect excuse for you. It's the Type 40 Live ad break. So go and top up or hose down the smallest room in your TARDIS.
Oh my God.
Anybody blessed with a better bladder can just sit tight and enjoy this ad break, time traveling all the way back to 1971. Check it out.
United, the greatest for color and style. That shirt is something else, and it's tapered to fit your body like skin. It's That Shirt in Dacron cotton by 22 International, now on release.
Every day and every way, you're okay with us.
Us goes a we go to help keep us dry. The hotter we get, the harder us works. Us, the deodorant for him, for her, for all of us.
Every day and every way, you're okay with us.
Day after day,
you're okay with us.
Night after night.
You're okay with us. You're okay with us.
Follow Harry. Get £7 for your old cleaner when you buy Electrolux from Civic.
Miss A. Weston, secretary. Tights by time. 9 till 5 tights. Daytimes. Smoothly efficient. Angie Weston, hair down, having fun. Tights by time. Playtimes. Happily pretty. Miss Angela Weston, lady in love, tights by time, love times, soft, sheer, and romantic.
Easier to choose than a man.
From the round-the-clock collection of tights by time.
If you were the only boy in the world and I were the only girl, there would be such wonderful things to do. I could do those things for you.
She was admiring my tie.
It's my favorite too.
Favorite ties are matchmates. They do tend to get noticed. In Terraline and Crimpline, favorite matchmates for the only boy in the world.
That's a nice shirt. It's a Ben Sherman.
Type 40 Live, your live stream Doctor Who magazine show here, clocking all the fixed and not so fixed points in the Whoniverse, both on and off screen. I'm still here with the panel. How drunk are they? Is anybody still conscious? That's what we want to know. Yes, I've got Charlotte Shields here. We've got Shah, the fearsome Shah, the zombie Shah, the walking Shah. We've got starry-eyed girl Sarah Graham over the other side. I think she may have been taken ill. I don't know. And we've got Stephen Noonan there in the corner, who appears to be flipping through some sort of
I've actually got the Radio Times from the week of episode 3.
Have you?
Of the Demons, and if I can just that's 19. That's not. Hang on, where's it gone? Hang on a minute. I did have it a second ago. Now what on earth have I done with it? Yeah, sorry. Talk amongst yourselves, because I've got so many copies of the Radio Times.
You'd be no good on Blue Peter, Stephen Noonan, would you?
Well, here we are
I
in
wouldn't,
the crypt, everybody. And we are live streaming this to YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook in front of a live chat who we've scared the life out of. And we've got some more comments here. 1971, according to Lord Thoth, was a great year.
I'll take
your word for it.
Before my time, really, before my time.
Great minds, girls. Great minds.
It was behind
great
me.
minds.
It was behind me all along, right?
It's behind you.
What have you got? What have you got?
Well, I got confused because this is the Radio Times from episode 3 of the Demons, but then there's this is the week of. The second week of For to Doomsday. It's almost identical in 1982.
It is actually.
Bloody Richard Bryars. God almighty. I think he had more Radio Times covers than any other actor. But it's interesting, this is episode 3 of The Demons, and it says the Doctor. I can't read this. There's no light here. Hang on a minute. Let me use this. Is there a torch on this? This is what happens when you do live streams, isn't it? There's all sorts of things happen.
That's right. You can edit it. It would edit it out. It's fine.
No, we can't. Well, they're all seeing this. The Doctor reveals the truth behind the events at Devil's End. That's episode 3. Now that's 10 past 6. In my recollection, all Pertwee was 5 something, and I've got a feeling somebody's calling me now. It's all going tits up.
You're being heckled.
I had a feeling that all Pertwee and most of early Baker was 5 something, but I've got a feeling that it was the controversy about Terror of the Autons, because of course people have made complaints that they put it later. So you've got sort of later stories this season are 6 something. But it shows how times change, because the main feature in this week's Radio Times is a new series of the Black and White Minstrel Show. Was the big event.
I remember that. Yeah, that was still on when I was little.
And there's no mention of it being controversial. There's interviews with all its fans, introducing the Minstrel's most loyal fans, the ladies in seats A14 and A15. You know.
I've got that issue, says Crimpling Doubloon. Obviously, another Radio Times.
Of course he has. I would be surprised if he hasn't got every issue since 1927.
Well, we rely on you, Crimpling.
He was very amusing in the comments I noted, and he said, "Where would the importance of being earnest be without the line a reticule?" Because it's the line is a handbag, and so he picked up on the handbag reticule thing. Somebody else earlier on in the chat said, "Does anybody remember the play Pender's Fen, which was 1974, which is a really extraordinary folk horror sort of play for today, which is one of those things you think somebody trying to pitch this. It's about how we're messing up the planet. It's got an ecology message. It's about Christianity versus paganism. It's about the music of Edward Elgar. It's about the burgeoning sexuality of a teenage boy played by Spencer Banks, who was in Time Slip, which is one of those extraordinary pieces of TV drama that epitomizes the 70s to me, how it was all about expanding the parameters of expression for writers.
Well,
Nobody's being told what to write or what to do. Writers, directors, producers were being allowed to make things they wanted to make. It was an extraordinary period of artistic creativity.
The principle behind this particular story, though, does it is very kind of Nigel Neal and John Wyndham and all those kind of storytellers, I suppose, whichever medium they were telling stories in, and it taps into deep-seated fears, I suppose. The visage, for example, of the horned beast that we don't meet until the very end of the story, really, in Azal, this towering giant with cloven feet and horns and fangs. It's the devil, for all intents and purposes, that we've seen in books and carved into walls and all manner of things that have lasted centuries, never mind generations. So it taps into all of that, something that's very primal. And but the idea, I suppose, that was relatively new thinking back then and a higher sci-fi concept that I think people find irresistible. That notion that you spoke about earlier on, that humanity's development over the millennia has been here and there nudged along by outsiders from other worlds or other dimensions. This idea persists to this day. Entire religions have been founded on that principle. So you've got a seam of that running underneath the demons as well as the crypts and the gargoyles and the rain and all those conventions of kind of schlockier horror.
I've got to correct you there, Dan. We can't say crypt. Remember, for the demons, it has to be cavern.
Cavern.
Yes.
Oh, that was a condition, wasn't it, of putting the story together, that Barry Letts could swap out language for something that was less connected to religion and therefore be less contentious. Is that where it was?
They weren't allowed to use the word God either. You'll notice the word God isn't in it at all either. Interestingly,
so they didn't upset.
The master talks about
yeah.
the soul being an outdated concept, but the word, I think it was originally God, is an outdated concept, and then they changed it to the soul. So yeah, and so yeah, they couldn't have them carry out a black mass on consecrated ground. So it was a cavern, not a crypt. So they were being very careful.
Even the doctor at one point, the doctor's almost burnt at the stake, isn't he? The villagers treat him with suspicion and hostility, I suppose. He's captured pretty much over and over again, and I don't know if they view him as a crank or not, but the idea is to sort of write him off and to discredit him at every junction because they're so seduced by the master, by belief in him and faith in their local vicar, which again would have been quite natural, quite unthreatening. Same with the local police officer who gets sort of taken over by the evil force, doesn't he, at one point, the power of suggestion. I like the idea in this story as well that energy is being redistributed as well, Charlotte, that it's being focused and funneled and channeled and used to turn human beings against one another.
Yeah, I think there's, for all the sort of, you said the spookiness and the sort of supernatural, actually there's a real psychological undertaking to lots of this. if you think about what the Master's doing, they're commenting on cults and leadership, and how if you get a group of people, you can get them, if you're convincing enough, to do anything. And it's only when the Doctor does his show of almost a bit of like sort of, look what I can do, look at my powers. That's when they start to sort of break the spell the villagers have with the Master, except from the one sort of loyal follower he still has by the end. Yeah, and I just think that's what, like I said, I've watched this again over the weekend, and I hadn't seen it for a while, like you actually. And you just forget, because there's the obvious stuff in your face here. I think that's done on purpose, so you don't think about the sort of the more underlining threads. Like I said, the idea of cults, of psychological stuff, of paganism, of sort of English folk tradition and paganism, like that sort of stuff. It's sort of all weaved, and that's what I think is ultimately why I can see why when this came out, it was seen as, wow, this is one of the best ones, because it hits on so many different things, and it does it subtly, and then you don't think about it until you really watch it again. So yeah, it was such a joy to watch this again. I'm so happy I did.
When did you first see it, Charlotte? When did you first see it? Do you remember?
Probably about 2 years ago, when I proper started doing my piece sort of meal, because I did it that I watched a Doctor for each story, then I'd go back and start again at William, and then go through again. So thank you, everybody. It's been lovely to spend Halloween with everybody. And
thank you for your contributions as
always.
always.
You got to go.
Pleasure, Charlotte. Yeah.
It's 10 o'clock. I need to go bedtime. Okay. But Stephen, it's been lovely to be on stream.
And you too, John. Yes, lovely to see you next time, hopefully. Yeah,
hopefully next time.
Right.
Bye-bye.
See you Thursday. Bye.
See you on the next one. Yeah, as stories go. Oh, God, scares the life out of me.
Scared myself.
Oh yeah, the fewer there are, the bigger we guess. That's bizarre, isn't it? Yeah.
I know. It's a crying shame, isn't it?
Kind of what Charlotte was talking about there. With me with this story, I noticed a lot more this time than I think I had before, and like not just the nuances to Pertwee's performance, which have been such a slow burn for me, but all the undercurrents within the characters too. And you know what? I think that the reason for me is completely superficial. The reason why I've always appreciated this story and I've always liked it. I've always rated it quite highly. But this time it was next to a revelation. And I think the barrier for me before was simply the aesthetics. The fact that despite the fact, because, this was pretty much destroyed by the BBC. It was junked along with lots of other stories, and it was retrieved various different prints. We've always had it, I think, on video in some form or another. But over the last 30 years, through VHS and then DVD, I've seen and the repeat on BBC Two, I've seen multiple versions of this gradually coming back to life and to colour. But every time I've watched it over the years, it's always felt like a bit of a compromise. And I've always been conscious of the efforts that have been made to restore it to its former glory, to its broadcast quality, to save the story. It's always been a stumbling block for me because I've spent a lot of time looking at and comparing the bits that look better than others, where the colours match better than others. This time, though, seeing it on DVD for the very first time, it was released a couple of years ago in the spring of 2021 as part of the Season 8 box set. It's the first time I've seen it on Blu-ray. The job done on this was so fantastic. I was able to completely invest in the story, probably for the very first time. It's not something I was doing consciously before, but it's only now I'm out of the other side of it, and now I can finally see the demons as it was intended to be seen, that I can really get into the story, really appreciate the characters and the subtext, and see it for the sensational piece of not just Doctor Who, but of 1970s TV that it undoubtedly is.
Do you find it difficult when there's a there's a technical problem or there's a fuzzy picture? Or,
I can do.
because the revelation to me was or again with this story, is a completely opposite thing. Because I said before, I'm getting boring about this, but because John Pertwee was as much a black and white Doctor to a lot of us in the set, that most people didn't have color tellies. So when people kept going about, oh, Spearhead from Space, it must have been so exciting to watch Doctor Who in color for the first time. The majority of people weren't watching Spearhead from Space in color. We didn't get a color telly till episode 4 of Revenge of the Cybermen. Nick Briggs didn't get one. I think it was till Mask of Mandragora. So people were. So when I, as I did yesterday, because I've been watching it in the Blu-ray and it's all very, very nicely remastered and it's very clear. And then I thought I'm gonna watch it in black and white, like I always eventually do. And when I put the black and white on, I go, oh, that's John Pertwee Doctor Who. It's black and white, And there's something about the sort of the infernal sort of aesthetic of black and white, there's a word, fuliginous, which is like the soot of hell. What scared the shit out of me about Doctor Who as a child, the Sea Devils, they were so dark, they were black and the Ogrons, the Daleks in Planet of the Daleks, Lynx, just looked like a slab of a piece of shit in a helmet,
Looks like a turd wrapped in a silver piece.
Well, we used to call him old. My cousin Ian's got an old shithead, But there's something about that. Something about that black and white aesthetic where the colours bled out of it, and it's kind to the sets, it's kind to CSO, it's also kind to the designs, but it also makes everything look really, really scary and sinister. And I watched The Demons again, not again because I didn't see it, I wasn't young enough to see it, but I watched it in black and white. I've seen it in black and white, and suddenly Azal looks like Satan without the colour, and you can't see the fact that he's got a CSO glow around him, and so you get that sort of black as soot element that was what turned me onto Doctor Who as a little boy. Was it scared the shit out of me because it looked like I was being taken to hell. And but this is a story which deals with those concepts. But so to me, I suppose that the what do you call it? The renovation, the curation, the remastering stuff is sort of irrelevant to it. It's almost like the rougher it looks, and certainly the more monochrome it looks, the more it looks like that era Doctor Who to me. Interesting.
Some Doctor Who monsters, they look better in black and white, Sarah. There's no getting away from that fact.
No, absolutely. And what you were saying, that I'm used to that kind of like fuzziness of like 70s TV shows, so it really doesn't take anything out, because I just think, well, it's just of its time, it's part of its charm.
And when we were starting to get to see them, we were often getting several generations down copies, ABC Australia copies. The first time I saw the Sea Devils was a copy from Australia. The first time I saw the Seeds of Doom again, because they were very, very very sporadically and infrequently coming out on VHS. So you were seeing very, very scuzzy versions of the stories, and that was, you got fond of watching them in that form with the tracking going, and when anything went quiet, the volume had come up to a sort of deafening level and the silence, in a really weird sort of way.
I have always found Morris Dancers a little bit sinister anyway, I have to be honest, Shard. There's something about seeing grown men playing with little bells and little sticks of wood, wearing ribbons around their knees and flowers. I don't know. I've always viewed it with suspicion. It's as if the music that's playing to us that we can hear means something else inside their heads. How do you feel about Morris dancers, Shah? Have you got a position on the art of Morris dancing?
I thought you were going to ask me if I had a poll. Yeah.
I think we all know. Oh, my lovely.
Well, I never. What do I even say to that? I do not understand the charm or the I think we've got way better traditions than Morris dancing. I don't know.
Well, it's the music, because it's so it's like circus. Like circus music's really sinister. Fairground music.
Yes, you're right. Yeah.
You are
Is that
right.
the music you get in the musical box? You know, when you're waiting for the little guy to pop out of the door, and you got that sort of
it's coming.
Yeah, it's all very.
I've never steady on. Yeah, there's something about So with the Morris dancing thing again, and the bits and the sticks there, and of course when one of them sets about Sergeant Benton with his stick there in the pub. You think, and you never really see his face either. He's possessed in some way, you know, even if it's possessed by the words of the master and belief in the master's plan. What he's told him will be a good thing for the village and a good thing for humanity. It's that unflinching belief that you see in somebody's eyes that would power them to do something violent and potentially catastrophic. That's scary as well.
And how it's shot is scary because a lot of it is from the Doctor's perspective. You know, you get that, that claustrophobic. Yeah, it is really unsettling.
There's a lot of good violence in this. That's a good fight scene.
Yeah.
And Benton and the Verger in the crypt. That's a good fight scene. The one by the helicopter. That's a good. So
that's great.
Good era for violence, isn't it?
It's very
when Benton is set about by the Verger and falls onto that pentagram, and John Levine does his best sort of screaming in agony.
That's his best performance, isn't it? I think. In this
superb. Superb.
Yeah.
Big fan of John Levine. Big fan of John Levine.
Big fan of John Levine in this story, certainly. Yeah. It's probably Bessie. It's Bessie's best story as well, I think, isn't it? You know,
Bessie gets some great moments too.
The chase with the helicopter. You know, we used to have a joke. Really we used to have a joke when Doctor Who magazine started, or Doctor Who Monthly, as it was called. Jeremy Bentham, who wrote it all, would always talk about televisual masterpieces, and it was always if the story had a helicopter in it, it was always a classic. You know. So you knew you were watching a classic for the story of the helicopter, partly because they'd spent a lot of money, obviously, because it cost a fortune. But this is probably the best helicopter sequence in Pertwee era, isn't it? I thought, the chase.
It is a good
chase.
And the chase actually means something rather than like.
Even though it's a borrowed piece of footage from what's the film that borrowed the
Isn't it from Russia with Love?
Very good, yes, from Russia with Love.
Well, it was a film. It was a bit of footage that they didn't use in the film, wasn't it? But they
it is in the film. It is in the film. It is in the film.
I read that it was a different take of the same.
Footage. Well, it's almost identical.
A different angle. Yeah.
Because if you watch From Russia with Love, the exploding television,
I'm going to watch it now and compare.
Yeah. It looks identical to me, but of course, From Russia with Love hadn't been on telly.
So you would never have noticed.
No,
you never have compared.
Fact, From Russia with Love was the first Bond film I ever saw, which talking about Halloween stories. It was shown round about the time of Pyramids of Mars. From Russia with Love. No, that's Dr. No. Sorry, From Russia with Love is about a month after Seeds of Doom, which made
I love that film.
Do you? Yeah.
Oh, I love.
You're right. You're right about the chopper, the way that they use the helicopter in this, the bike chase as well, where Mike Yates is on the bike firing the gun there to try and get to the Doctor, because the Doctor's driving at great speed for Bessie, approaching that heat barrier. We don't know what's going to happen, and it is Bessie's story, Bessie's best story. She comes across like she's got an actual personality in this, and I think it could partly be because of those Herbie scenes that we get where the Doctor's working with a remote control.
But I think Benton and Yates are at their best in this because they both seem like they could actually do their jobs. And there's other stories where you don't necessarily buy that they got the training.
I mean, the real
on the bike and the fights and the helicopter and everything, and they look like they can handle themselves.
The position I've got to with this one, Stephen, as somebody, as I say, who's taken the long way around with the Pertwee era, the thing I've always had,
and you're still going actually by the sound.
Yeah, the thing that I've always had against a lot of it, and the reason why I haven't enjoyed it so much is that I've always felt that a lot of the stories are simply too long. Sometimes by one episode, sometimes by two, sometimes by more. And so that always does put me off a little bit. Here, though, I found myself quite perversely thinking that the Demons could have actually have done with being an episode longer. I felt that if it does have a weakness, it's simply in the fact that the whole thing is resolved too damn quickly. We spend ages waiting for Azal to appear. And when he does, he speaks a few times, and then the story's kind of almost over. And the situation, the standoff between the Doctor, the Master, Azal, and Joe in the mix as well. There's a lot in there, and yet that one scene, which is really loaded with pathos, it could have been a lot more. I think it could have played out for longer. There could have been a conversation, because Azal, he's an intelligent character, and I think a proper conversation, a three-way conversation between the Master, the Doctor, and Azal could have been very, very interesting over a much longer period at the end of a season like
I'd
this.
agree with that, actually, Dan, because when Azal finally appears, it's quite disappointing, because he's like a sullen teenager. But why have I got to listen to you? It could have been a bit more. I think there was it just feels a little bit rushed, that final episode.
And I was enjoying it so much.
What was that?
So I thought you were topping up your drink. I was like, I can see you.
No, I'm not that bad.
But again, it's got that scary in a non-horrific way quality about it. So I love all that.
I think the problem with Azal is, if you try to examine what he's doing there, what are the Demons up to? Why do they help us to kick out Neanderthal man? Well, they turned it to help us get, but it's never explained. Why did they nudge us towards the Renaissance and the Industrial Revolution? Later on, and we keep going back. This is the Nigel Neal sort of wellspring of this. Oh my God, take that away. That's horrible. His nostrils, they're obscene. This is the first story that does it, isn't it? that we've been helped by aliens, and it's from Quatermass and the Pit, where the plot comes from, Nigel Neal. And then they do it again in Image of the Fendal, which we discussed a few weeks ago. Then, when City of Death came along, I remember as a 11 or 12-year-old going, "Oh bloody hell, we've done this before, haven't we?" The aliens helped us along. But at least in the defense of City of Death, not that Douglas Adams needs any defense, and that story was voted the best Tom Baker story of all time recently, wasn't it? I don't necessarily agree, but anyway, at least Scaroth has a very good motivation in City of Death, doesn't he? He's pushing us forward for the wonderful irony that he can go back and stop it all happening in the first place.
And because we spend a much longer time with the character, we don't invest in it as such, but it becomes quite believable in the weirdest of ways.
I don't think Barry Letts and Robert Sloman, or we actually watching the Demons, are particularly interested in what Azal's motivation is. He's there as a sort of a wonderful metaphorical representative of the satanic idea, and what is the satanic idea? What ultimately makes the satanic defeated is the satanic or the evil inability to understand compassion, or to have any sense of itself except that of itself. And so that's why I find it rather beautiful that suddenly the whole thing is resolved by a human being saying, "I am prepared to put myself before another person." And
narratively,
beautiful moment in the commentary that Russell T Davies did with Katie Manning on the Green Death Blu-ray, and he talked very touchingly about how powerful that ending was. I'm not old enough to remember it as a child, but he remembered it as a child, and just how extraordinarily meaningful and almost life-changing it was to him as a child, recognizing what a wonderful impulse that is, or an urge that is, for a human being to put themselves before somebody else. The concept of altruism. And I don't know if he went as far as to say this, it may not actually exist, but to see it exist in fiction perhaps suggests to us that we could actually try and mimic it in life. I always find it incredibly moving, that moment, and it's been much ridiculed as being a silly sort of Deus Ex Machina. But I find it very, and it's so. That's another thing about this era. Nobody ever sends anything up. Everybody's always playing it 100% to the limits of their conviction, and because Katie Manning does, John Pertwee does, and Azal, Stephen Thorne's performance is fantastic. I buy it completely. And when that church blows up at the end, I believe it's blown up for a purpose, and it's given us a little, not a finger wagging sermon, but a rather beautiful little simple lesson about how we might behave with each other, and I think it works.
Beautifully put, mate. Beautifully put. Do you want to know my favourite fact about the demons? I'm going to tell you anyway. It's the fact I only noticed this a little while ago, a couple of years ago. In fact, is that of all the various cowled figures in their masks, there in the. I
know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say.
Sooty. Yeah. He's going to talk about Sooty.
Of course, I am. The only one who speaks. The only one who speaks was played by Matthew Corbett, who this guy. Yeah, when I was a child, Matthew Corbett was one of the best-known faces on children's television as the custodian then of Sooty. Sooty had been originated, I suppose you could say, found and brought to fame by Matthew Corbett's father, Harry Corbett, who'd passed it along to his son. And I think undoubtedly it was Matthew Corbett that took the character of Sooty to greater heights than ever. It was incredibly popular program in the 1980s, and here he was. I believe he was only about 18 when he had this small speaking role in the Demons there, and he's there at the conclusion, isn't he? I think he gets shot by a lightning bolt by Azal at one point. I couldn't quite work out what was going on
because he's the only one.
Does he?
Doesn't want to. He doesn't want to sacrifice Joe, does he? He's the first one to protest. So yeah, I think he gets zapped.
Yeah.
I think Katie Manning took credit for getting in the line, giving him the speaking part there on the commentary. I think there's something going on there.
Fabulous.
Because I was Harry Corbett generation, but you remember Matthew? Do you? It was he?
Oh
he was the Sooty puppeteer. Yeah.
He was even like for me.
Yeah, as well.
Yeah.
So, right. Okay.
Yeah. That photo. No, but that photo really does make me smile because I used to love I used to love Sweep, but I used to love Sooty.
Yeah, Sweep was my favourite. Yeah.
Sweep was everybody's favourite, including Peter Harrington's "Where's Sweep? Please Sweep" in Doctor Who. They used to film Sooty and Co. about 20 minutes.
Nobody liked Sue, did they? Sue
was a Karen, and Scampi was annoying.
Sue was a Karen.
Scrappy girl, weren't it?
Oh God, yeah! You've been watching our review here of the Demons for Halloween 2023. Uncanny, terrifying, absolutely terrifying. Yes, 1971's
crazy hair. Love it.
This was 1971 season finale, of course. Back then in season 8, written by Guy Leopold, Barry Letts and Robert Sloman, really, and broadcast in the summer of 1971. A favourite to this day. It's always been a favourite as long as I've been a Doctor Who fan. It was one of those stories that people talked about with bated breath years before I could even watch it. So it's one of those stories that I may have slightly resented it a little bit when people kept telling, the Demons. Of course, that's one of the best. You can forget all the stuff you like. Even the Caves of Androzani couldn't even touch this.
You resented Tom Baker for quite some time.
I did a little, yeah. Yeah, not at the time that he was the Doctor, but for a little time afterwards, I did.
He casts a long shadow.
He does.
Did it receive any complaints for its, the themes and things?
I think the most famous one is somebody writing to the Radio Times complaining about them blowing up a church. So somebody thought they'd actually blown up an actual
It was a real church, right? Yeah, because the BBC would have that budget.
Yeah.
They genuinely thought that was a real church that the BBC had blown up, but of course it was a beautifully made model. In fact, it's one of the most convincing models
It is a very
in the Sims history.
model.
Can't knock them for that. And it's a great moment as well. And there's a solemnity to it, because the church is almost a character in itself in that as well, complicit in the master's plan. I mean, you could say a lot of old churches are a little sinister as well, particularly in the half light. And I like how at the end of the story as well, Miss Hawthorne remarks about how the birds have started singing again and things like that.
Yeah, it's a
And
nice
that spring is in the air. It's that kind of everything's getting back to normal, Sarah. Lovely moment.
Again, if we think with anybody else, you just kind of roll your eyes at a line like that, but again, it's performed so well. It's just little things like that, because I mean, there's some corkers are like, there's some horrible things that Joe says that are just ridiculous, and
Can you give us an example?
No, because you made me go blank now. This one, go on, you know one. Go on.
Oh well, there's some clunky bits of exposition.
Yeah.
Where she says, the doctor says something, and she's I can't remember what it is, and she says, he says, oh, something very sinister is going on. She says, you really mean that, don't you? And it's a sort of badly written line, and she does her best with it. But there's a few of those where you think, no, that had needed a rewrite. There's a few the clunky bits like that. Oh look, there's Percy with your glasses on.
Yeah.
The village of Aldbourne has unsurprisingly become somewhat of a tourist destination.
Well.
Yeah.
A tourist destination for Doctor Who fans over the last 50 years. The locals, I believe that some locals are a little weary of it, but most, I believe, are quite encouraging because obviously it might bring in a little bit of trade. The pub actually in the village of Aldbourne, I understand that was going through a period of difficulty last year, so they were appealing for more customers in a hope to save the business. So I do hope that has gone okay. But Aldbourne is just 6 miles northeast of Marlborough in Wiltshire in England, and I am no doubt at all that lots of people who are watching this in the live chat on YouTube, Rumble and Facebook right now, or watching and listening after the fact, lots of you have probably been there. I have had the opportunity to a couple of times, but I never actually have. But yeah,
we'll do a Type 40 then.
I think we should. But the cast and the crew had a brilliant time there with the locals, and I think there are certainly some of the people who were there filming at the time have appeared on special features on DVDs, and have certainly given their testimony of their time spent with the cast and crew of Doctor Who. This picture in particular is pretty heart melting, isn't it? To seeing John Pertwee there with two children in there. It's actually, I probably wear a jumper like that.
Him and Tom Baker, yeah.
You get no arguments from me.
Sorry, Peter Davison.
Well, we should do a Type 40 about Peter Davison.
We shouldn't we, Stephen? Yeah.
I think maybe we should. Yeah, I think that would be pretty good. Yes. So the demons. If you haven't seen it yet, if you haven't seen it yet, it's coming. It's coming along with another 800 episodes of Doctor Who.
I love Shah's chutzpah coming on this without having seen it. And it's great.
I just go with the flow, mate.
Absolutely brilliant.
She just had to be here.
That she is a John Pertwee fan. What's your favourite John Pertwee story, Shah? Or the one?
Oh God! Now you're asking me.
Or give me 2 or 3. Give me 2 or 3.
Do you know what? As much as or none. No, as much as I don't like spiders, I actually think that's such a good story. It really is.
It's a great regeneration story, isn't it? Yeah.
It's actually I did a video on it last week. Plug. I did a video on it
last
week.
Did you?
And,
oh, fantastic.
Yeah, and
it's
thank you very much. It's in the ranking, yeah, and it's because I did a ranking of regenerations basically, and I just thought it felt like when I watched it, it was like I was watching a regeneration for the first time ever, even though I've obviously seen them before. It was the first time I genuinely thought this is being explained to me. This is very sweet, and I was very sad. So it was It was a great
a lot of thought went into it, I think, from Barry Letts, and again, it's a Barry Letts, Robert Sloman story. Like this one is. This is the first. This is the first, and that's the last one. There's a remarkable sort of philosophy Obviously, there's a lot of Buddhist sort of influence in it, but it isn't. I think it's extraordinary. It's too long, probably, The Planet of the Spiders.
It is. It's a very ambitious story. Yeah,
but you know,
you can
the way.
forgive that because it's the
well,
last.
You've got to forgive it.
Story.
People weren't watching it all in one go. They had those slots. They had 6-part slots regularly, and they had to. And Terence Six said it was hell's delight trying to fill the bloody things, you know. But we watched them a week apart.
Sorry, I cannot believe I didn't mention it because I bang on about it because it's such an underrated story. But The Time Monster, I love that story. Another very long one, actually.
Wow, you're one of the world's few fans of The Time Monster.
I know. But do you know what it is?
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Do you know what it is? I love the master in it too much. I think he's excellent in it. I really do. And
I adore The Time Monster. It's you, me, Nick Briggs, and one or two other people really enjoy
I'm on
The
it.
Time.
We'll have to be sure to get a Time Monster review scheduled at some point in the future. But we have to wrap this up now. The Demons is certain to be available there on the BBC iPlayer from the 1st of November. So it'll be there with 800 episodes of Doctor Who, along with spin-offs and confidentials and all manner of other things. So if you haven't seen this before, there's more ways than ever to sample these classic stories in a way that's convenient to you in this anniversary year. Let us know what you think, of course, in the comments section. Is this an old favourite? Is this something that you've warmed to over the years? Have you never seen it? You think I've got to get this in my life right now? There's no wrong answers.
Seen this episode? God.
There's no wrong answers. Let us know
what did you
in
say,
the comments
Char?
section.
What was the question?
I said I can't imagine anyone not watching this episode.
No,
Who's not?
no, I think you're the only person.
I think I might be.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your comments, everybody. Hang on a second. Where are we going next? I think we'll go here.
Well, according to the Lord High President, I seem to have caused a problem in the universe. Well, it isn't me, it's probably the Time Lords, continually using me as some kind of galactic yo-yo. Might I suggest you actually watch Type 40 podcast? That should have all the answers you need. There's always time. Well, I have rather an abundance of it, don't I?
Oh, God, love him.
Oh, was terrified Nardole here. I hope we haven't terrified you too much with our review of the Demons.
About Scott, not Nardole.
As ever, we're rounding things off with a last look at the view screen and our regular eye right up the temporal schism in search of the prettiest pictures from out there in the Whoniverse. And I've got to remind you, as always, that if you are a fan artist or crafter or cosplayer, or any of the above, please get in touch with us and send us their work.
What are you looking at?
We want to see their work. Stop interrupting my links. We want to know where we can find all the things that you or they do. So send us a link to their website, their Instagram feed, or their DeviantArt page, or anything like that, so we can get them up on the view screen and everybody can enjoy their work here in the console room. Okay, and we've got some artwork here that's inspired not just by one slice of Doctor Who, but by Doctor Who that may have terrified the life out of folks at various points in their fandoms. First of all, I thought you'd like this one, Sarah. This is by Rafe Warbank. You've probably seen his work across several Big Finish releases. A fantastic fan artist that is now commissioned to work on licensed products. And this one is a poster for Love and Monsters with a very Edgar Allan Poe-ish kind of vibe, I think.
That is really good, yeah. Well, it's not my favourite story, you know that. It's one of Stephen's favourite stories. What do you think, Stephen?
I like the story very much, but it's a much darker sort of message you get from that picture than the story conveys.
If the story had been like that in that vein, that would be fantastic.
What you have to remember, people have to remember, is the reason why the Graham Williams era became a drag is because you had week after week after week after week of flippancy. Now, people who come to the series in the modern era, they don't know what it's like to be trapped in the Williams era, because they can go, oh well, one week you watch Pyramids of Mars, and then you can watch the Sea Devils, and then you can watch androids of Tara or whatever. But if you were stuck there, you know, and you've got the whole of the bloody Key to Time season, and there isn't a scary moment in it.
Oh, you're
fine. All that gets you through.
Hang on a minute. Stones of Blood did.
All that gets you didn't frighten me. All that gets you through is the charisma of Tom Baker and the glamour and arch wit of the extraordinary Mary Tam. That got me through that. But and then you get to season 17, and you know, and there's only really City of Death that stands out. It's hard work. So, but in Defense of Love and Monsters, it was a one-off story. The next week you had Fear Her. That was shit, wasn't it? But you know, you'd had the Satan Pit or whatever, and other dramatic stories in the season. So you occasionally the Doctor to foray into something more sort of light-hearted or frivolous or satirical. I thought was, you know, that was quite strong in what it was trying to do. But I know it's one of the great table dividers, isn't it? That story. It's one of the great the biggest sort of Marmite story in Doctor Who's history.
And you see very little fan art.
He's fantastic, though. But what's his name?
Warren's brilliant in it.
Yeah, he's brilliant in it, as is Camille Kajuri, you know. And,
yeah, she's always reliable.
She is, to be fair.
She was the best thing in it.
Peter Harrington says it reminds him of Appointment with Fear. That poster is. I'm not quite sure what is that. A Hitchcock film? I can't quite remember. But it has got a certain pulpy feel to it, which I really appreciate, and the use of typography too. There, kind of 70s-ish. Which, that's a nice touch there from Rafe. I always enjoy looking at his work. Unsurprisingly, The Demons itself has inspired lots of creativity over the last 50 years, not least of all in people who are frustrated even at the long wait for official merchandise, like official action figures. I'm thinking of the Celestial Toy Maker out there on Instagram who has been showing off this custom Azal action figure there.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I would buy that.
Very nice, very nice. He's got the old Tom Jones chest ring. He's got the nostrils that tickled Stephen's fancy so much. There.
He looks a bit Mungo Jerry actually, and this is the year, of course, that they were at their very peak in 1971. So it's very topical.
Mungo Jerry. There's a name and a half. Very good, says Ezra Goldstein. Fab, says Peter Harrington. Wow, says Crimpling the Blue. Would you put this on that shelf behind you there, Sarah? Do you think you could find a place for Azal?
I would put it in a prominent position on my shelf. Yeah.
Yes, there we go. He's. I'm not sure how big this is. I think it's probably standard action figure size. Whereas if you were to get them in scale with the other figures, it needs to come in a shoebox or something, wouldn't it? At the size of the thing. Yeah, you'd want it to scale. You definitely want it to scale. Next up, we've got this one. This is from the artist Daryl Joyce, who's a bit of a friend of the show now. He's just sold out of his brilliant book, The Illustrated Journey. And this is a piece of his work that's nearly 20 years old. It is a faux Hammer horror style movie poster. What if The Demons was remade as a Doctor Who movie, but starring the actor Edward Woodward, who of course was the star of The Wicker Man? Well, we'd probably get something like this. Daryl he's got the pentagram with Joe actually on the pentagram. The Daleks are there as well. So he's thrown in the Daleks. We've got his take on both Azal and Bok, and Christopher Lee as the Master.
Good choice.
Yeah. Oh, I really like that. Yeah, that works. There's alternate universe where Christopher Lee was the Master. That would be fantastic.
I like how it's certificate A. So that was the old certification in Great Britain. And the tagline says it's a devil of a situation and there's only one man who can save us now. And Edward Woodward as Doctor Who, but Christopher Lee gets top billing, if you notice. The rank organisation presents. Sure.
It's really not relevant. But what? Oh my god, I can't even think what the word is. Rated A. What did that mean? Adult?
That was adult. So that would probably be now the equivalent of a 15, a PG or a 15.
Yeah, it used to be a U universal, an A, an AA, and an X, didn't it? And I can't remember
wonder what X meant.
Yeah, so this would have been a PG. The AA would have been a 15. Would have been under adult supervision.
A's PG. That's right. AA's 15. I think that's right.
Yeah. Well, sure, X would have been OnlyFans, obviously.
Obviously. And if you want to, I have my very own if you want to see things like this. Not really Stephen, I saw that look.
Much to the disappointment
Something to do with the lighting. I don't think there was a look at all.
Shaw melted Twitter. Shaw melted Twitter / X over the weekend at the suggestion that she may have an OnlyFans. After thirsty fans misread her tweet, bless her. And finally, we've got another one from a favourite artist here at Type 40 Live. I could not get this up on screen. It's a relatively recent one, again by Philip James Allison, who's going through the entirety of Doctor Who history, both the classic series and the new. And this is his fabulous take on the demons.
Oh, that's nice.
I saw this on Twitter. Yeah, just fantastic.
What's your favourite component? What's your favourite component part, Sarah, of this one? I'll tell you mine if you tell me yours.
I like it all. I can't choose. I love the symmetry of it, and just the daytime and the nighttime. It's just so effective, isn't it?
Yeah. My favourite though has to be the way that Bok is sprightly, jumping, almost flying, because of course he has got wings.
Well,
we never see him.
We never see it, but does he fly?
Yeah, we never see him fly.
There's a shot, isn't there, of Delgado looking out the window.
Yeah,
as if he's watching Bok flying off.
Take flight, yeah.
And so it's
because he's a bit like the flying monkeys in the Wizard of Oz, isn't he, Steve?
He is. Well, particularly there. I've got a story now. There was one year my dad used to take me to the Blackpool exhibition every year, and with my friend Jonathan O'Brien. And my dad would, wherever we went, my dad would always get talking to somebody because he was that sort of friendly bloke. And he'd often get talking to some other, young fan in their teens or 20s, and he'd have a chat. And he came and he said, "I've just been talking to a very, very interesting young lad, and he told me a very interesting story. This is about 1976. He said, yeah, his name was Mark Bok, this lad, and he'd written a letter. He said to Barry Letts, the producer." At the time, a fan letter, and they liked his name so much that they used his name for a character. I went, "What? You've just met Bok?"
That's amazing.
That was where the name came from. This lad called Mark Bok, who was a fan.
That's
Barry said, "Oh, I like that. We're looking for a name for the gargoyle."
I've never heard that before. Is that documented anywhere?
Well, I don't know. I've no idea. But that was my dad. Maybe the lad had made it up and just spun my daddy up. I can't see why he would.
No,
tell some some other kid's dad who wasn't a Doctor Who fan why he would claim to be the originator of an name. But there you are.
Bok is catapulted in this piece of artwork from Philip James Allison, according to Peter Harrington. Quite right. I think it's probably the best thing for him. Get catapulted and explode into little bits of dust. Yes, 5 rounds rapid. Of course, that's the classic line everybody quotes from this story, isn't it? When the Brigadier orders shots to be fired into Bok's chest, but it'll take a lot more to punish him off in the end.
It wasn't going to be in the script. They were going to take it out.
Terence Dick, they'd written it. Terence Dix wanted to, so that's a bit excessive. He walked behind Barry Letts, and one way, and Barry Letts said, "Oh, I rather like that line," and so they kept it in. But Terence wanted to excise it. I think I've got it the right way around. One of them wanted to remove it. I think it was Terence. But yeah, it's one of the most famous lines in the history of the program, isn't it? And a line that my dad, when we watched it at the BFI, my dad thought was hilarious because he'd done his national service. That's so absolutely the sort of the British military officer sort of sang-froid sort of line. It's archetypal, you know.
Just to repeat the request, if you are a fan artist or you know a fan artist that you think that we'd enjoy their work, just like we did Phillips and Darrell's and the Celestial Toy Makers there, then let us know who they are and where we can find their work. We genuinely love to get it up on screen, showcase their artwork, maybe get them on for a bit of a chat. Fantastic Doctor Who artwork, says Ezra Goldstein. Who are we to?
We'd love to come on and have a chat.
And some fabulous comments too in the live chat across YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook. Thank you for all of those, for all of your memories, all of your little asides and observations about this story, about this seminal piece of the John Pertwee era, which I thought was perfect to mark Halloween night here for 2023. We've had a nice review of that, and we've talked about the various ways in which Doctor Who has chilled us over the decades, but obviously results may vary. So let us know yours in the comments section, and we might get back to you and maybe turn it into yet another show, yet another discussion. So yeah, let us know in the comments section. One more fright from this guy.
Holy shit, you weren't lying. That made me jump.
It always scares the life out of you, that one, doesn't it? Back to the present day for the next Type 40 Live, of course, in just a couple of days' time. The Doctor Who universe, the Whoniverse, is taking shape as we are about to begin, as of time of recording, the anniversary month itself, the 60th anniversary month, where David Tennant's 14th Doctor is leading us into the celebrations. I can't wait. Very much looking forward to it. I know you guys are going to have a lot to say about it, and you can let us know your thoughts. Of course, as always, get in touch through our social media, Instagram and X at Type 40 Doctor Who, or you can join us in the Type 40 Facebook group too there, with generations upon regenerations worth of Doctor Who fans reminiscing about the classic show, the kind of the way that we've been doing for the last couple of hours, or talking about new Doctor Who too, their favourite scary stories, whether it's The Impossible Planet or Blink or Fear Her, whichever one scared you the most. We talk about those in the Type 40 Facebook group too, as well as point off into the future and wonder what they're going to attempt to scare the life out of the next generation of kids with on all new Doctor Who, led by Ncuti Gatwa's 15th Doctor. That's coming next year, of course. We've got a few episodes to get through before we get there. You can find all our conversations about everything that's coming here at Type 40 Live. So please like the video, subscribe to the channel, check you're still subscribed. You know what YouTube can be like. And hit the cloister bell to get all the notifications about what's coming next and when it's coming, whether it's another live stream or a podcast.
Can I just point out before we go out, we seem to have gone full circle back to beginning with that extra TARDIS room, because we've got Stephen with his candelabra there, and then his modern TARDIS.
Almost burnt down, those candles. Night's candles are burnt out, and Jock
I like the synchronicity of it.
Sorry, what's the relevance of the lava lamp coming full circle? Remind me.
The TARDIS room at the beginning.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. We've got the gothic and
God,
the
Stephen.
Back to the 70s. Yes, we thank you everybody for all of your comments.
But I'm all ready for the next phase
extravaganza, yeah,
because I've got all my fireworks ready for fireworks night. As you can see, so
that's what you've got. I thought it was a pizza box.
No.
I know. The reason I was laughing so much and I got the giggles is because every time I saw, like, I don't know, Dan would cut to a video or a picture, we came back, you had another prop.
I know. I know. And a lot of them were never used, actually, But no, talking about frightening things, this is rather wonderful memory of mine with this story. I think I've mentioned this before. My ex wouldn't let my son watch Doctor Who. This is round about Matt Smith time. So, but she'd let me show him John Pertwee stories. And this is Box says Happy Halloween, but keep Xenia away from me. That was a girl that used to sort of scare him when he was little. And so
scare the life out of me too, mate.
So, well, you know what Xenia's like. And so I used to make these books.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And there's this, but often this is a very fond memory. this was me introducing him to. He hadn't seen the Auton stories yet, so this is coming soon. There we are. The third Doctor, now stranded on Earth, faces Channing and Nestine controlling the Autons. I'm not human, and on this planet there is a saying that it is never too late. Oh yeah, you are too late, human. And on the back, Joe Grant is the Doctor's new. Oh, sorry, that's right. So I was gonna show him the Auton story. So there was that. These are all obviously blown up photos from the DVD, and that's the old original. And then on the back, Joe Grant's the Doctor's new girl companion, and she's in trouble right from the start. Not only that, she gets attacked by this. I got a phone call from Sam's mum saying he'd had a nightmare from this photo, just from that photo.
Right, it's terrifying.
But that, and I thought, brilliant. That's Doctor Who's doing its job. Even one photograph. That's what it's for. To scare the little buggers to death.
And future Type 40 extras will be just.
And now he's 15, and his favourite memories are being scared by episodes of Doctor Who. The things that scared him most. The things like.
Fantastic.
The things that scared him most: the flood from Waters of Mars, when he was eventually allowed to watch these things. The ghosts from under the lake, the veil from Heaven Sent. You know. I'm trying to think of some of the other things, but they got things that if his mum had given me a ring and go, he's had a nightmare. Oh yeah, the zombies in Oxygen, they really scared him as well, you know. And so if I got a phone call from his mum saying he's had another nightmare at Doctor Who, I'd be so pleased. It's still doing its job.
Yes.
And there is fondest memories, you know, as mine are. Being scared by
kids love being scared.
Of course
they do. They do, because they know you know, somewhere they know it's not real and that it's safe and it's actually, you know, part of their growth.
I think children enjoy being scared. I know. Yes.
On Halloween.
Very nice. Yes, children and adults still love being scared, and I've really enjoyed our conversation this evening about this classic piece of Doctor Who, which I very much rediscovered just over the last few days. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk about it with all of you guys. Whovember is dawning. A lot to cover on the next Type 40 Live in just 2 days' time. We'll see you then, same time and space. I think, because we don't want to give anybody any nightmares, do we, everybody? I think we'll leave them with the sight of John Pertwee, Doctor Who, and the villagers at Aldbourne there, and Katie Manning too. I mean, look at that. And there's a little puppy dog there too, Shah. So, yeah, it's just a wonderful
just for me.
Yeah.
Cute.
Thanks for coming on, Shah, and for giving us your best zombie, your zombie girl.
Can we just quickly rate it? Can we rate the story? Very quickly.
Oh, I thought you meant my attempts at makeup.
And we'll rate your attempt a 5 for Shah's makeup.
Yes,
obviously.
Go on then. Give us your ratings of the story.
Oh, 5. Obviously 5. Come on.
5.
5.
Shah, what's your rating for the Demons?
She imagines it'll probably be
a 5.
Very good.
5.
Well, you've hyped it up enough, you guys. I'm actually, and I'll be honest, genuinely as well, you've given me a great education, and you have inspired me to watch it. I need to go watch it, so I will do, and be ready for next time.
Well, I'm looking forward to your video about Planet of the Spiders. Is that up yet? Or
I haven't done. No, I haven't done it yet. That was a generation. That was a regeneration video, Stephen. God,
the generation game was first shown in 1971, the same year as this story. That's one of the interesting.
Still bringing out the facts.
There you go. Absolutely.
Good game, and great stream. Thank you, Stephen.
It was a twirl.
It's been a pleasure to have you on, mate. I hope you've enjoyed yourself.
Oh. It's the first
lamp.
time I've done a live one, and it's not nerve-wracking, but nonetheless, it's actually exciting.
You were very well behaved. I'm very impressed.
I was.
Yes.
It takes a while.
Yeah.
It takes a while to get warmed up, doesn't it? As much as your lava lamp does.
He doesn't.
We'll pull you back on for another one at some point in the future. But yes, of course, you can hear Stephen on editions of Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast. We've reviewed Image of the Fendel, wasn't it, Stephen? And Death of the Daleks.
And Death of the Daleks.
And Father's Day.
And Father's Day. Although the rabbi would tell you it was several other different stories, but those are the ones.
Anybody you think he's not paying attention? Sarah, fabulous fancy dress this evening as well. Thanks for giving us your very, very best book. And let's do it again in a couple of days' time. And get together maybe next Halloween. Who knows what we'll talk about then? But that's it for this one. Whovember's on the way, everybody. You know what to do. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell.
I was going to say, but I can't remember what it was now. I'll text you, Dan, and you, Sarah, and you can put it in the next
text me, and I'll tell everybody else. Good night, everybody. Happy Halloween.
Good night. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.